See website for details on our 2-month subscription offer.
Ladies, lose weight, improve your health, and eat great with Nutrisystem. Get our new premium meals with up to 30 grams of protein. They're big and filling and taste delicious. Plus, try our new restaurant faves that taste like your favorite restaurant, portioned with half the calories. Beef and bean burritos, toasted ravioli, sesame beef and broccoli. Easy to prepare and made in minutes. The secret? Advanced nutritional science that helps keep your blood sugar levels steady and you losing weight. With Nutrisystem, you get your breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and snacks all delivered right to your door. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/meals right now and get 50% off. You heard me right. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meals right now and get 50% off all plans. Don't wait. This special offer will not last long. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/meals right now and get 50% off. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meals.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? This is the Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson here, and you are listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latter from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Chris Samsa from Sport of Pro Wrestling. On today's show, we'll review the road to Tokyo Dome and preview all 3 nights of Wrestle Kingdom 16, answer listener questions, and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tee store, ProWrestlingTees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, Chris, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Did you know that this is my 3rd consecutive Keeping It Strong Style Wrestle Kingdom preview show?
I did. I saw that. You tweeted it out right before we went on the air.
Very proud of that. 3 years straight, made it out for this night. It's very special.
You know, you got to start a tour off hot. You know, the big Corkin date. You start with us, and you go running from there, man.
Might just be 4 straight Corkins. We'll see. Not sure what the week's gonna
be. You mean like there's less people having you on this year?
I don't have a lot finalized, but there are some people who have reached out to me to see what's good for the rest of the week. So, but the tour always starts at Keeping It Strong Style because you guys you seem to time yourselves to land early, which is good for me because it forces me to start getting stuff ready.
Well, you know,
I just wasn't sure if like there was like less people actually covering New Japan. Maybe that's why like.
So the cool thing that I like to help people do is catch people up. So when big events, so usually G1, New Japan Cup, G1, and Wrestle Kingdom, I'll always hit up whoever I've done audio with in the past and say like, hey, if you want to do a little preview sitch, let me know. So I've got a couple of bites. I'll probably get out there a little bit more this year. Last year was kind of quiet. G1 season was kind of quiet. So, and I know that you guys have talked about that quite a bit. So But I think people want to get back into it, and Wrestle Kingdom's usually a good chance to dive back in.
Yeah, definitely a great jumping point. I feel in a normal year anyway, people are kind of jumping out during World Tag League season and kind of waiting for the hype of Wrestle Kingdom. So also we have the Road to shows we'll talk about here in a second and kind of the build to Wrestle Kingdom. And Chris, we'll get your thoughts. We really haven't heard your opinions on all three nights and kind of what you're thinking, what your excitement level is. But first we have a question here from a good friend of the show, Dan Coffin, aka the Ghoul, the dad of the Largo Loop. He wants to know, did Santa bring any wrestling-related gifts to us this year?
Oh, I thought you said Samsa. I was like, Chris, did you bring us anything?
Got a red bag over my shoulder, ready to give wrestling-related gifts.
You know, I mean, I don't believe in Santa, so, I mean...
Wow.
Well, did anybody give you any wrestling-related gifts then?
I did get one wrestling related gift this year. I got a vintage Sandman t-shirt. And it's fashioned in the design of a Budweiser can logo, but it's Sandman. And it says on the back, like, blood, sweat, tears, and violence, you know, in that, like, very 90s ECW kind of way. So, yeah, that's what I got.
Didn't you also get a women's PWI 100?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Was a guy gift. Yeah, someone bought me the PWI 150 women's, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I trashed that. I don't even have it anymore. No, I'm just playing. It's in the closet. They also gave me a, it was from our Largo Loop Secret Santa gift exchange. They got me a poster of the Four Pillars, but it's done in, like, you know, 1970s, like, comic book sort of style. So, you know, it looks like a comic book cover, the four of them standing there. The weird thing, though, is they're all, like, super, like, jacked and have chiseled chins. And I was like, I don't remember, you know, Taue looking this, like, fit, you know? Like, Mizawa's very, very slim there. It's kind of weird.
What about you, Chris? Any wrestling-related gifts this year?
No wrestling-related gifts. I actually don't think I've had... This is going to sound sad, I guess, but I haven't gotten any gifts.
Oh.
Yeah, I see the face. Yeah, well, so my wife and I didn't do gifts. Just sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. This year was a we don't year, and both sides of my family do Secret Santa, and my Secret Santa couldn't make it to Christmas on both sides of the family, so I'm like over here waiting for any gifts, which is okay. I'm not a it's much more fun to give gifts than receive them as you get older, I find.
Yeah.
So, you know, like actually getting gifts is kind of awkward sometimes because you're like, this is cool. But yeah, so it's been a quiet Christmas, and no, you know, I buy myself my wrestling related gifts usually. So yeah, nothing left to give me. I got eyes on that 50th anniversary tracksuit.
Oh yeah, I saw that drop today. I'm like,
yeah,
that's looking pretty hot. Might have
that may be a gift to myself. So another nice red and black New Japan tracksuit. A good start to the year. So
yeah.
How about you, Jeremy, Mr. Merch?
I didn't get any merch, so to speak, but my girlfriend, one of the gifts she got me the John Moxley book. Hardcover, so that was pretty cool. And then her aunt got me this New Japan pin that has like a ice pack in the middle instead of the lion mark, and it's like just keep fighting kind of thing. So I guess it's like a playoff, like the Young Lions, and bringing in the ice pack. And so
she definitely didn't know what she was buying. She was just like, it's a New Japan thing,
right? Yep,
I'm gonna buy it. And then it turned out to be awesome. Like, I saw that and I was like, someone made a pin out of the ice pack. Like, that's incredible.
Like the blue or the whatever ice pack.
Yeah,
the blue. Bring it.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, Jen told me your podcast is about New Japan or pro wrestling, something like that. So this is what I found. I was like, that works.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
really cool.
Why does that exist? That's so weird. I love it though.
I don't know.
It's probably from like Etsy or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think it goes from Etsy, like one of those like design your own gimmicks.
I got last year I got like 4 pins, and they were all like manga style, but it was like Tanahashi, Naito, Hiromu, and I think the other one was either maybe Okada or Shingo. I can't remember, but so I got some New Japan pins too.
Nice.
Around here somewhere.
All right, let's jump in, guys, to our Road to Tokyo Dome talk. So we had 4 Road to shows that happened in the last week, and we'll just kind of go over the results real quick. Anything you guys want to point out, any story elements that you noticed, any thoughts that you had here, some of the bigger matches we can kind of give some points on as well. So the first show we had was Tuesday, December 21st on New Japan World. Show opened up. We had Fale and Chase Owens defeating Yuji Nagata and Yuto Nakashima. Then we had Doki and Yoshinobu Kanemaru defeating Kosei Vegeta and Toriano. And also that match was in part to set up the King of Pro Wrestling year-end party match that would happen on the last Road 2 show. Then we had House of Torture, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro defeating the Chaos team of Ishii, Yo, and Oiwa. Obviously setting up the Never Six-Man match and the Never title match between Evil and Ishii there. Then we had the Chaos team of Goto, Yoshihashi, and Tiger Mask defeating the Suzuki-Gun team of Taichi, Taka Michinoku, and Zack Sabre Jr. And also that's setting up the tag team title match. Then we had Tanahashi, Wato, and Taguchi defeating the Bullet Club team of ELP, Gato, and Taiji Ishimori. Then the semi-main event, United Empire team of Aaron Henare, Great Okan, and Jeff Cobb defeated Los Ingobernables, De Japón, Bushi, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. And kind of started here on this night, and we'll talk about it as we go through here. Naito started working on the knees of Jeff Cobb, so it seems like going into their Wrestle Kingdom match, that will be a heavy focus for Naito. We've seen him bust out some different submission moves throughout the year, so maybe he'll start using more leg submission here to try and submit Cobb at the Dome.
It's probably more likely he just wants a fair fight. So, he has no knees. Cobb shouldn't have any either. Just make it equal,
Yeah.
They've just removed Tetsuya Naito's knees. So that's how he's standing.
There's no MCL. There's no PCL. All that's gone. It's just cartilage and bone just grafting on each other. That's basically what it is now.
Okay, Dave.
Is that something Dave says?
Dave talks about Tetsuya Naito's knees like they don't exist, yeah.
Yeah, he has like a fixation on his knees.
Well, Dave also talks about Okada's quote-unquote back injury. Back.
Yeah.
His back is just so torn up, but he's out there killing it every night.
Yeah, you'd think if his back was in good shape, he'd be, even more of the best wrestler of all time than he already is. Like he's already the best wrestler ever, and his back. Could you imagine if this guy had a full back? And it's like,
a full back.
I think he might.
Listen, Okada's a couple years younger than me, and my back hurts from just, like normal stuff. So like maybe Dave's just hedging his bet that like his back hurts because he's in his, I guess, mid-30s.
No, he's getting worked by someone that's like, oh, his back is gone.
No, I do think he had a back situation.
He did.
Something going on.
Yeah, because there was that documentary they did, I think it was a year or two ago, and showing like how much it hurt to get out of bed and all that stuff. But honestly, he plays on that even more in his matches and sells the back and has guys like Cobb suplex him on the outside. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then Dave kind of overblows it, but
it's fighting spirit, guys.
But speaking of Okada, he was in the main event here. Him and Robbie Eagles, they lost the LIJ team of Hiromu Takahashi and Shingo Takagi. And I would say this is one of the best matches from this stretch of Road to Tokyo Dome shows. Great preview here for Shingo and Okada. And also Eagles and Hiromu have great chemistry, and just a great back and forth matchup here. And great to see the LIJ team, Shingo, getting the win here.
Yeah, this was great. This whole show was really good, really solid. It's also free on NJPW World without any sort of account, both in English and Japanese. So if you're keeping up with New Japan via Keepin' It Strong Style and you're waiting for the first so you can resubscribe to New Japan World, you should check out this particular show because it's free and you don't have to worry about having an account that's active.
Yeah.
So then we move on to Wednesday, December 22nd, opened up with Fale, Chase, and Jado defeating Vegeta, Oiwa, and Nakashima. Then we had Doki, Suzuki, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru defeating Tenkoji and Toriano, continuing to build the year-end party. House of Torture, Dick Togo, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi defeating the Chaos team of Ishii and Yo, and they teamed up with Great Bash Heel, Togi Makabe, and Tomi Yokohama. One thing I didn't notice here with House of Torture, Dick Togo, he is wearing all 3 of the never openweight 6-man titles.
Yeah, those guys don't really care about the belts, and he's their lackey, and yeah, that's what he does.
I mean, he's doing most of the work in their matches anyway, so he should wear all the belts.
I feel like there was someone in Suzuki-gun that had that gimmick a few years back. It might have been Taichi or maybe Taka. I don't know. Someone was wearing like all the belts of all the other members at one point. It was really funny.
I feel like it would be a Taka thing to do.
Maybe.
But next match here, we had Goto and Yoshihashi and Master Wato. They defeated the Suzuki-gun team of Taichi, Taka, and Zack Sabre Jr. So Taka not picking up much wins here since his return to the company.
Any? Has he gotten one win?
Yeah, he gets one on
one. Yeah,
the next show.
Yeah, it's the third of these shows, isn't it?
Yeah.
He got the fall even.
Yeah, he did.
See, I've only finished up to the second night, and I just like,
I mean, the big story out of the third night was that Taka got a fall. So, no, actually, that's not true. The main event was something to see too.
Yeah. So next up here, we had United Empire, Hanare, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb. They defeated the LIJ team of Bushi, Sonata, and Tetsuya Naito. Then we had Hiromu and Shingo defeating Okada and Ryusuke Taguchi. And then the main event here, we had ELP, the return of Kenta and Taiji Ishimori. They defeated Flying Tiger, Robbie Eagles, and Tiger Mask, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. And post-match here, as in several nights, Kenta just laid out Tanahashi. They have a no DQ match happening at Wrestle Kingdom for the U.S. title, and the whole story is, can Tanahashi stoop to Kenta's level and go with the no DQ rules, or is he going to continue to try to fight straight? And so far, it's been backfiring. Kenta's been getting the better of him, laying him out with the title or chair shots, and just leaving this man laying broken every night.
Yeah, that's showism. He had the same problem in the Super Juniors. Couldn't out-cheat the other master cheaters.
Well, yeah, hopefully the ace here can figure it out by Tokyo Dome. So then that takes us to Thursday, December 23rd. We had Taichi, Taka, and Zack Sabre Jr. winning here. Taichi picking up the fall here as they defeated Goto, Yoshihashi, and Kosei Fujita. Taka getting the win over Fujita there. Then we had Yano and Nagata. They defeated Suzuki and Kanemaru by disqualification here as Kanemaru got the Satori whiskey and was putting it down Yano's throat, and the referee saw enough and called DQ there. Then we had House of Torture, Dick Togo, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro defeating the Chaos team of Ishii and Yo, and they teamed up with Tenkoji. Then we had Bad Luck Fale, Chase, ELP, Kenta, and Taiji Ishimori defeating Robbie Eagles, Tiger Mask, Tanahashi, Okada, and Tomioka Hanma. Surprise, the Mega Aces are on a team. They lose. Once again, Tanahashi gets laid out there at the end by Kenta. Then we had the LIJ team of Sonata, Shingo, and Naito defeating the United Empire, Hanare, Great Okan, and Jeff Cobb. And then the big main event this night, we had Bushi and Hiromu. They went to a 30-minute draw with Doki and El Desperado. Chris, you saw this match. Any thoughts up on that big main event there?
I was surprised to see it go to a draw. But I think obviously the story that they're telling is Hiromu and Despi need a lot of time to finish what they have going on. So, yeah, no, I mean, it was a good draw. It was really fun. I do like them. They've done this a couple times this year where they go to the time limit draw in a tag match leading up to a big match, which I actually think, like the obvious choice was for either Despi or Hiromu to pin Bushi or Dookie. I mean, like that's like the clear New Japan booking, but
yeah,
I greatly enjoyed the twist on that, I guess, and it made for a really awesome junior tag main event, which you don't really see all that often because all these guys are juniors.
Yeah, I mean, you see Bushi on one side, you see Doki on the other side. Like, oh, well, you got two pin eaters here. Either team could win here, and kind of one guy can build momentum going into the junior title match at the Dome. But yeah, continue that story that they told in Best Super Junior 28 when these guys faced off. They had the 30-minute draw there as well. So once again, another draw. So yeah, like you mentioned, Chris, coming Wrestle Kingdom, it's going to see like these guys, also they're going to get more than 30, and they're going to need more than 30 to finish each other off. And it's almost like they're telling a story of like Despy as an hour could really, he's being elevated to Hiromu's level. And it's a lot harder for Hiromu to beat Desperado.
I did see this match.
What do you think about it?
I saw the main events of both nights. Yeah, I thought that this was really great. I mean, like you guys mentioned, the fact that they went to a draw already in the previous tournament and then kind of went to a draw here. And, you know, the inclusion of Bushi and Doki sort of as like red herrings, you know, and they played their role really well as, you know, also. So I mean, I don't know. I haven't always been as high on the Hiromu Desperado feud as everyone else is, but with this match and the previous outing, plus everything that was kind of said and done at the press conference, this is maybe becoming one of my most anticipated matches, if not the most anticipated for Wrestle Kingdom. And we'll talk about the review here in a moment. But yeah, a very good main event for the third night.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are going to go out. I know we're not quite into the preview, but like what these guys are showing is that they're going to go out and have a banger of a match when they finally get at it in the Dome.
My concern was they wouldn't be able to because it's a junior match in the Dome and it would be very good, but not to that, you know, high standard they set. And it's kind of starting to feel like they're going to let them go out there and like do it, you know?
Yeah, they are.
They're the semi-main.
Yeah, semi-main,
yeah. On 1-4, which means, I mean, that's got to mean something. I mean, it's booked over the tags, over the Never Openweight Championship, over Shibata. So, I mean, that's going to be a big match. And obviously with these two guys, like these are the faces of the division, and they have done a nice job letting Desperado have his moments. So this is a big match for both these guys. If they can deliver, like that's going to mean a lot, I think, for the future of both of these guys with the company.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you know, Hiromu's been on his whole goal to try and main event the Dome and have the junior title match be the main event. So one step closer here, semi-main event slot. And yeah, if they deliver here, we can potentially, maybe, who knows, if all these multiple nights, we could get one night with a junior main event.
This could be their Sasha and Bailey in New York, you know?
Yeah. Steal the show.
You know, I got a feeling the crowd's not going to be quite as hot.
So last Road 2 show here, last New Japan show of 2021, opened up with a three-way match, ELP defeating Ryusuke Taguchi and Tiger Mask. Also, this was set up the three-way junior tag team title match that is coming up. ELP was able to use the sudden death to get the win at the end. They tried to pull his boot off and reveal that there was something hitting in the boot, but he was able to escape. We did have a question here from the Dark Soldier, not really to this match, but to three ways in general. And he said, why are you guys against triple threat matches for singles titles? I personally feel using them sparingly, like the Kenny, Kota, and Cody match, could freshen things up and could make for a more exciting match than having the dragged out 30-plus minute match in a clap crowd.
Well, first, I will say, I feel like we've discussed this before in the past when the same listener asked a question about triple threats a while back. Not that we don't appreciate the question, but, you know, it's just, I'm not a big fan of triple threats in general. There's too many like tropes that they rely on that drag down the quality of the match. There are some triple threats I like, but there's for every one triple threat I like, there's probably like 20 triple threats I don't like. And in New Japan, you know, I'm not really a big fan of most non-traditional style matches for major titles. Like you said, could it make sense? Sure. For instance, would I be okay if, maybe not at Wrestle Kingdom, but if they had to settle the controversy of the three belts, decided to do Okada, Ospreay, and Shingo? Yeah, I'd probably be fine with that. There's 3 titles. There's a storyline reason for it, and those guys could probably do it. But you know, I don't want them once a year. I don't even want them like maybe once like every 5 years. I don't know. Like I'm not a big fan of them.
About you, Chris?
I'm a traditionalist.
Yeah, I largely agree with Josh there. I don't know if I like this match was fine. But it was a 9-minute opener on a Road to show, right? Like,
yeah.
So, but the thing about it is like the story or the conflict is usually between 2 wrestlers, right? For major singles titles. And the more you bring in anything else on the outside, it's hard to see a scenario where there's a 3-way conflict that all things are equal, right? So I don't know. I think that's why I typically shy away from it, or shy away from wanting to see that, because it's so unclear. There's usually one member of that, triple threat or 3-way dance. If you're an ECW fan, there's one person who's kind of just there. And I think in New Japan, what we see more often is that person just gets the next shot, right?
Right.
And that's just, it's so much clearer, so much cleaner. And then when you're thinking about units and factions and groups too, I mean, there's a lot of groups where a couple of different members can compete for the top title, but the intergroup conflict is part of it. So you would need, you got to spread it out. It just gets overcomplicated. And when it comes to the in-ring, Josh kind of alluded to it too. Like there's a lot of tropes, right? Like someone's going to hit their finisher and the other guy's going to come break up the pin, right? Like we know that. And like, can it be done well? Absolutely. Like there's really good triple threat 3-way dance matches. Some of the wrestlers in New Japan could certainly put together great stuff. And I think they do sometimes when they do, say, the junior tag 3-ways and things like that. Like it's a little less tropey than we're used to. But yeah, I think just the clear one-on-one or group on group is so much better. Like it just makes more sense.
One other thing too is how many times has someone ever been made when they won a triple threat and didn't pin the champion? Very often when the champion is defending, they'll have someone that the other guy lose so that the champion can avoid taking the pinfall. But then it devalues everybody. The champion still has a story, but the guy that won the title, he didn't really beat the real champion. It's just very murky,
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. That it's kind of used as a booking crutch for bookers who don't want to beat a champion or they don't want to beat a contender. It's like, well, yeah, let's just throw a 3-way or throw a pin eater in there, and then that guy can eat the pin. Or we don't want to pin the champion, so we'll have the contender pin the pin eater, and then we'll set up a rematch with the new champion, the ex-champion, and kind of make a bigger deal out of it. So, I mean, like you said, it can be done right. Obviously, you look back at stuff like Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels in TNA for the X Division title, and that was an incredible matchup there. So it can be done well with the right story, with the right guys, but I don't think it's something that you should have to go to every time.
That's the thing. That match was built with the right guys, the right story. It called for that match. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
right.
The only one I can think of that didn't call for it and still ended up being great was like Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, and that was only because they didn't think they could headline with Benoit. And they needed Shawn's star power.
Right.
That's kind of why he was there. Otherwise, like I don't know, it's not. I don't know. They suck.
But one of the great things about New Japan is that anybody can lose at any time.
Right.
And yeah, of course there's guys that lose less, like they're better, right? But anybody can take a pin, take a finisher, actually lose a match. And I think that's what's so appealing about New Japan is that like some of these guys that you don't expect would ever lose sometimes, or take the fall in a tag match for that matter. Like these guys aren't like protected like that. And that's what appeals to so many people, I think, is that like there is actually some suspense.
Okada's the top star in the company, and not only has he lost multiple times this year, but he's lost twice in major singles matches to the man that he's challenging for the title in the Tokyo Dome this year, in this calendar year specifically. So, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris.
Right, which is all part of the story of their match. It kind of helps elevate it and makes it a personal issue. It's like, all right, can Okada actually beat Shingo, or does Shingo just have Okada's number and will beat him a third time in a row?
He's going to beat that ass. I don't know.
Let's finish off this Road to show here. So we also had United Empire's Aaron Henare, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb defeating Tenkoji and Yuji Nagata. Then we had Bad Luck Fale, Chase, and Kenta defeating Great Bash Heel and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Then we had the KOPW end of year parties rule match with Toru Yano defending against Yoshinobu Kanemaru. The rules for this matchup, they had to take a shot of Satori whiskey every 2 minutes. And this was actually the first time that a Yano stipulation did not win. Yano wanted them to drink sake. Obviously, Kanemaru, the master of Satori Surprise, Satori whiskey, wanted that. So they had to drink the whiskey every 2 minutes. Then there was a 20 count. If they couldn't answer the 20 count, they would lose the matchup. And then so every 2 minutes they'd go out, take a shot, go back into the ring and wrestle until we got to the finish here with Yano pinning Kanemaru. Chris, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm not sure what I expected when KOPW was announced long ago, year and a half ago or so. It sure as hell wasn't this, though. But this was fun. I mean, like, really fun and weird and totally out there. And, the creativity of the stipulation, I appreciate it. And, this is obviously not going to make my match of the year list, but I greatly enjoyed it. I know a lot of people did. But yeah, I do like the occasional super out there stipulation, and this sure was that.
Yeah, this was definitely your kind of funny haha moment, and it was fun. They already have established KOPW as this kind of comedic relief, kind of comedy gimmick that they're going to throw in the middle of the card, and also you had the two perfect guys for this match in Yano and Kanemaru. I mean, there was a fun little story there of, Yano, he was having a hard time handling the whiskey towards the end there, and Kanemaru was trying to get the sneak count out win towards the end there. But in the end, Yano took it from him. And yeah, it was a fun match. Honestly, the best part for me was just Kevin Kelly's call on this match. He was just dying laughing the whole match, and this was losing it. So yeah, it's a fun little haha in the middle of the card here. Josh, you didn't see this match, did you?
No, I ain't got time for, KOPW. Let's move on.
So,
I might go back and watch it. 9 minutes, that's not so bad.
You got 9 minutes. We're not talking 30 here.
Yeah.
I got 9 minutes, so it's fine.
So with
guys,
that,
I watched the entire press conference. I thought I was focusing on the right stuff.
With this Yano win, Yano is now the official, KOPW champion for 2021. And then,
do you think that they're going to rethink this whole thing? Because once you think about it, in theory, it sounded okay. But think about it. The only real champion is the guy that wins it at the last day of the year. But then immediately on the next show, there's no champion. So there's no glory attached to it. They should just change it to the provisional champion is the defending champion, just like regular belts.
But this way, Yano gets trophies every year.
No, you can still have a physical trophy,
for any time you hold it.
Yeah.
But now he's got multiple trophies.
That's fine. I'm sure
he's like Owen Hart now. He's got
He's got 2 Slammies.
Yeah.
I've already mentioned that. I'm pretty sure they got a box of those fucking KOPW trophies back there. They
got a sweet deal on those trophies.
I mean, that is it's the cutest trophy in pro wrestling.
Okay. I'll watch it. It's fine.
So moving on here, we had Chaos team of Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi. They defeated the House of Torture team of Dick Togo, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro. But even though the Faces won here, House of Torture left Chaos laying. Then we had Suzuki-gun in the semi-main event here. Despy, Taichi, and Zack Saber Jr. They defeated the LIJ team of Hiromu, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. Saber catching a pinfall on Sanada here to get the win for their team. And then the main event here, we had Kazuchika Okada and Robbie Eagles. They defeated the LIJ team of Bushi and Shingo Takagi. Okada hitting a big rainmaker on Bushi to get the win for the team. Post-match, they had a little back and forth promo that was interrupted by Will Ospreay, who's finishing up his quarantine, sent in a video message, and pretty much just laying his claim to being the real world champion and walking away January 5th as the undisputed IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Then after that, Shingo cut a promo, and we got the return of the year-end tradition, the Snowfall in Korakuen Hall, and Shingo standing tall as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion with the snow falling.
Yeah, incredible to see them return to. I talked about last week how much I wanted to see that snowfall, and they definitely did that. And we also got the traditional Ace, promo as he, talked us out of the building and into the new year and everything like that. So I was really happy with that, and I don't know. Every time I see that snowfall, it just gives me good feelings. It's Christmas Eve, right on the eve of Wrestle Kingdom, and I thought the match was good. I thought it was probably maybe just as good as that night one tag that involved Hiromu instead of Bushi.
Yeah, it was fun matchup here.
Yeah, loved it. I love that Shingo got the snow too. They didn't just they let Shingo have a moment there after he was even on the losing team. So yeah, love the return of the snow. Loved this match. Actually, this last show, the 24th, was really, really good. Definitely worth checking out if you've got New Japan World fired up. I think the first and the last show from this stretch were both super worthy of your time, and helped build up pretty much everything that's going to happen at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, and
I would.
Oh, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say, I would agree. The one thing I would point out, though, that main event on the third night is probably the best match of the tour, and probably early contender for tag team match of the year already.
Yeah, and Kevin Kelly has the English call for all four shows up there, so also he has a ton of great context and catches you up on all the stories that they're telling here going into Wrestle Kingdom. So with the Road to Tokyo Dome out of the way, we're going to talk about all 30 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, give our predictions.
I did want to say one quick thing before we move on. So I know I didn't watch all the shows, but one thing I noticed about the shows is just this was almost kind of like preseason football, in a certain sense. It didn't necessarily matter everything that they were doing, and it wasn't necessarily show of the year candidates and filled with matches that are going to blow you away. But everybody was working harder than they normally do on a Road to show. And I would say compared to last year's Road to Tokyo Domes, these were much better. And they were doing a really good job telling the stories that were leading to Wrestle Kingdom. And we kind of complained about how there seemed to be this lackadaisical, move into Wrestle Kingdom season coming out of Super Juniors World Tag League. And this kind of rectified that for me a little bit. Watching these shows, they were just very entertaining, very easy watches. It kind of gave me a feel of peak 2017, Road to shows where everything was just, on point and kind of pushing to, the big show that's coming up and kind of got you hyped and anticipated for it. And I feel it's been a while since New Japan maybe felt like that. Maybe not since New Beginning Tour of this past year, it hasn't really felt that way. And so that was kind of nice, just having shows that were easy watches, but that also kind of built to the anticipation for what's coming with Wrestle Kingdom.
It helps that there's very few people coming in for just the big show, right? Most of the Wrestle Kingdom card is already available and in Japan, and that way we got a bunch of different interactions on all four of these nights that, each night had a few interactions that were building towards Wrestle Kingdom. But it wasn't all the same. Right. Not every night was Kenta and Tanahashi as the primary story. Not every night was Okada and Shingo as the primary story, like walking out of it. So it was nice to see some variety in that way, because you've got really two major cards coming up, and which should give you plenty of stuff to work with and add some variety. So like I think you're right. Like these were, peak style Road 2 shows where it's kind of back to that clear storytelling, right? Like,
right.
Well, I think the reason that they haven't been doing it is because of COVID and the uncertainty of who's going to be available for what shows. And we saw how they tried to do this in the summer, and then Grand Slam got fucked, and then the Tokyo Dome, like all those Grand Slam shows kind of got screwed up and had to get switched around a lot. They got plagued by that all year, and I feel like they were non-committal to the big shows with the Road 2s because they didn't know if the stories they were telling were going to get paid off or not. And they kind of had to, kind of back away from this. But in this instance, with just 4 shows a week before, Tokyo Dome, which is set, it was kind of nice to see them do this again.
Well, and all the major shows had like 5 or 6 matches before.
Right.
So like you weren't working with a lot of stories. You were working with,
that's true too,
kind of half the number of stories that you have right now as you head into 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, both with,
because they had half the roster.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now they have maybe 2/3 of the roster, right? With a couple guys coming in and they're using Honma and Makabe and all these guys again. But yeah, I mean, I think I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think these were really good shows, and there's just so much more to work with when you have 10 or 12 matches to build, and you're building all of the titles. There's not a title stuck in America anymore,
right?
So like everything's right here, right in front of us, and I mean, this is probably the product of a lot of learning over the past 2 years or so, where now they may finally have figured out, I guess, how to go forward for a little bit until they can have people come in from out of the country.
Right. It just felt like every match here on these Road 2s had a purpose. I felt sometimes other parts of the year, some Road 2s, we got some matches that kind of like, all right, you're just kind of throwing random people in there just because you need to fill out a card. And we really didn't get that here. Even in some of the openers of like Chase and Fall, like, those guys are going to probably be a part of the Rambo and kind of, or maybe part of end up in like KOPW like they always kind of do. And so even those guys are getting built up. You have everybody getting built up and building heat and excitement for a lot of the stories that they are telling and developing here. So yeah, really fun set of 4 shows here, and just kind of great to see New Japan kind of get back to that kind of old school Road 2 booking, getting us hyped for the big shows. So with that, we're going to take a look now at all 3 cards for Wrestle Kingdom 16, give our preview and predictions here. We did have a question here from Rambo and Slam Pig asking how many title changes do you guys predict out of the 8 title matches across 2 nights? And do you think a big shakeup is coming or just a few changes? What is a normal number of title changes anyway?
So there have been Wrestle Kingdoms where almost every title changes hands, and back to the single night Wrestle Kingdoms, pretty much every title in New Japan plus maybe a Rev Pro or a Ring of Honor title were being defended. So there have been Wrestle Kingdoms with 6, 7, maybe 8 title changes. So there have been years where everything blows up and everything kind of starts fresh, and almost every title changes hands. I'm not personally anticipating that this year. I think that all of the titles could potentially change hands, though. And I think that that's part of the appeal to this year's Wrestle Kingdom, right? So, I mean, I know who I'm rooting for in the Never Openweight match, and then the tag titles are always at stake to change at Wrestle Kingdom. Junior heavyweight title, of course, you've got, 2 of the big players in that division, and then you've got the world heavyweight title picture. Junior tags can always change hands, Never Openweight 6-man, those can always change hands, right? So like there's a lot. The US title picture is solid in the way that Tanahashi coming in as the underdog against the champion, which always potentially could work in his favor. So it could be, it could be one of those years where they all change hands. I think it's a little less telegraphed than maybe last year when you kind of knew who was headed back to the States. The States or wherever they're from, Canada, in the case of someone like Iwgp, but like it was pretty clear who a couple of those title matches how they were going to go. So this year is a little different because I at least know that most of this group that's on Wrestle Kingdom is going to be on their, I guess it's the New Beginning Tour, though I don't think it's called the New Beginning Tour this year.
They're doing the Golden Series.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Golden Series is replacing Fantastica Mania, from what I understand. So they might still do New Beginning after that.
In February then?
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
Right. And then March is New Japan Cup. So, that's a long way of saying I don't think it's going to be one of those years where everything changes hands. That's just not my vibe on it. A lot of these titles have changed hands recently. So I think these might be the beginnings of good reigns, but I could be totally wrong too.
Well, as they're going into the 50th year and the 50th year celebration, we know they're doing a lot of special shows and a lot of big matchups. So I feel like they're going to try and set up whoever the champions are going to be for guys who can draw and have great matches, because they're going to be doing a lot of extra shows, a lot of special shows. And so you're going to need some guys in there who can draw and really help kind of, propel this 50th year celebration. Yeah,
I agree with both of you guys. And you made some great points. I think it's totally likely that all the titles could change hands. Say what you will about, the freshness of these two shows. They've done a great job putting believable individuals in these roles to where no matter who wins, they've got viable candidates to carry those titles. So I'm going to set the over-under at like 4. I think that's fair, like half, and that's kind of what I'm going to guess. I don't know what the betting term is, but I'm going to just say it's going to be 4. I think 4 of the titles will change and 4 of them will get retained. And I think that's a safe bet, probably.
Yeah, I haven't thought about my number yet. As we go through the predictions, I guess I'll figure out what I'm thinking for title changes here.
Oh, I'm on the fly with this entire prediction shit, like for the whole, because I've been thinking about it, but I don't know. So, I mean, it's going to be all real time for me.
Well, let's start with night 1, January 4th. Pre-show, we'll have the New Japan Rainbow match. The final 4 competitors will enter in the Fatal 4-Way, the second night for the first ever provisional KLPW 2022 champion. So any thoughts on who the final 4 could be here?
Chase Owens, Bad Luck Fale, Toriano, and was it Bushi last year?
Yeah.
Those were all the guys that were in it last year. You're just going to Bushi?
Yeah, I mean, they could do anything they want with this, but I do think that's a spot for Chase Owens on night 2. And I think Fale is, he's the big guy in a battle royal, and Yano's going to get involved. So yeah, I mean, I think those are the most likely candidates. But I think it'd be more fun if they did something or if they knocked out Yano. I think that's really fun.
That you're taking my thunder. That's exactly what I was like. Wouldn't it be amazing if like Yano just wasn't factored in at all, was knocked out?
Yeah.
And he's probably gonna be the last guy to come in, because I think that's how they usually do it. The champion comes in last and gets that champion's advantage. I would love if he walks in, he's doing his shit, and someone just fucking clotheslines him over the top rope, like he's like Bushwhacker Luke, and it's just a shock, like what the fuck.
That would make things interesting. I'm gonna go with the safe bet. I think Yano will be there, and as well as Chase and Fale. But for me, my 4th guy, I'm going with Kanemaru. I think they'll continue to run off that year-end party heat there between Yano and Kanemaru. So then that will take.
I don't know. All I know is he said Bushi. I've stopped putting it after that one year when I said Bushi was going to win the Rambo and he didn't. I'm never going to put any faith in Bushi as winning a Rambo ever again. He betrayed my trust. So other than that, I mean, it could be anybody. It probably will be. I mean, Yano's probably going to be one of those 4 guys regardless. So that's all I know.
Yeah.
I feel like this 4-way is going to need more House of Torture though. So maybe Dick Togo.
I mean, that's an option, yeah.
Wait, he's busy the second night.
I have no intention of watching.
You think Togo's going double duty?
Why not get double payday? Get the match, gets to be a second, helps the House of Torture retained the 6-man titles.
What a life.
Yeah, I don't know. I will tell you this, though. I have so much less investment in the Rambo with actual stakes tied to it, like KOPW. I loved it when it was just this weird niche thing with all these old timers and washed up dudes and cheeseburger and shit like that. Like, I don't know.
Delirious.
Yeah. Michael Elgin, you know?
Yeah, so
my dog Elgin.
Yeah, your dog. But let's move on here. So first match on the main card here, big grudge match, Yo versus Show. What are you guys thinking about this? How you feeling about the build here, and your thoughts and predictions for what's going to happen here?
I feel that there hasn't been enough of a great build. And it's not that in a vacuum things haven't happened that have progressed their story. I think it's the fact that because they're juniors and because this company typically doesn't tend to spend a lot of time putting spotlight on junior feuds that are either non-junior title or junior heavyweight, but they've kind of had to sort of do a slow build over many tours. I mean, you know, when Show and Yo broke up, that was like all the way back during the Junior Tag League. And then we got the one singles match, you know, on one of those Grand Slam shows. I mean, that was in the summer. That was a long time ago. And then the follow-up wasn't until Best of Super Juniors, and their stories were kind of concurrent with one another, but it wasn't like, it didn't feel like there was this beef that was mounting and then suddenly it's kind of all come back. Like they've done run-ins and returns and stuff. And I think they've tried to keep it hot, but I think that this feud has been underserved because the company doesn't tend to put a lot of shine on the juniors. So that being said, there's a lot of history there. Obviously, there's a lot of chemistry between these two guys. And at the same time, they've had 2 matches that I think have underserved both of them and underdelivered. And this is kind of the trilogy, and it's on the big stage, and it's an opener for Wrestle Kingdom. They're putting a lot of faith and stock and opportunity in their hands, and regardless of who wins, they need to go out there and have a blow-away match. I think with Show being in the infancy of his like heel reign, and then Yo still kind of just, you know, coming back from that injury and being this new singles, you know, Chaos Junior guy, like they kind of need to have a really good match to sort of set themselves up to be like that next generation of junior stars. And they kind of took the first steps during the Super Juniors, but they need to solidify it here on the big show and with the most amount of eyes watching, you know? And if they don't, I'm not saying they're done, but that's not a good sign if they don't. This is their, you know, this is their shot. They really need to like hammer it home. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think the build to this match has been kind of muted by House of Torture, right? Because the whole turn happened with Show joining House of Torture, going that way, and that's what's getting all the attention, I think. And the attention's not necessarily on these two guys that used to be a tag team like forever, and they've got this beef now. Like the attention is on how Show is going about his business. And I think that's unfortunate for the build, because I do think it kind of buries Yo. It leaves him kind of in the dust, and he's very much like the third character in his own story. Whereas Show is the first and the second. So him as an individual, and then House of Torture is kind of the second character, and then you throw in Yo, right, as this guy that's trying to foil it. So, am I super invested in this match? No, not particularly, because you kind of know where it's going to go. And you kind of know at least the main beats of what they're going to hit. So can they have a really good match that comes to a halt with some House of Torture stuff? Probably. And that may be what they do. But I do think that the Show turn has actually done a huge disservice to Yo.
Yeah, I think that they really hurt Yo in this feud. I think, first of all, this is it should be a very personal, blood feud, heated feud here. These guys have been teaming for a long time. They came up to the dojo together. kind of this brotherhood that they had and Show turning on Yo. I would like to see Yo be more aggressive. Like, I feel like whenever yes, they have like the running angles, but I don't feel that like aggressiveness from Yo. Like, man, my best friend just turned on me. Like, anytime they wrestle, like, Yo's still trying to go out there and like wrestle him and do his wacky roll-ups. He's not coming out there like tackling him, punching him, like trying to come for Show's throat. I don't see that. You don't really believe that there's that hatred there. Then you look at his Best of Super Juniors, I feel like he was they really set him up to be kind of a lame duck going into that, like with losing the beginning of his first few matches there. You already thought like, well, it's Yo, like, is he really going to win this tournament anyway? And then they didn't really help him with the booking. He's losing and he comes back, but there was just really no interest or momentum really going for him in that tournament. And then he finally gets to the finals, and his finals is overshadowed, like you mentioned, Chris, House of Torture. Like, when you think about what's happening with Yo, you just think of House of Torture in general, and that overshadowed his finals, which was on pace to be a great finals if they didn't have that interruption. Still a great matchup, but I feel like without the interruption, like, that could have been a really big moment for Yo and to elevate Yo hanging in there for Romu on a big stage like that.
I will say this. During the press conference, Show was very impressive with the promo that he cut. It was one of the actually more entertaining segments of the entire press conference. And Show was like, after the way Yo's been speaking about me in public, using harsh language and some of the post-match attacks he's put on me, I've found that this guy's nothing more than just a hoodlum at this point. And Chaos, this is a gang of thugs, and thank God I was saved from them. I'm no longer associated with these rule breakers. He's like, and who knows, he might bring cronies to the ring with him to try and interfere with our match. And he's like, I solemnly swear that I will not do anything but have a straight, clean, fair match. So like, which means he's definitely going to cheat, obviously. But it was really funny when he's like, thank God I've been saved from those thugs and Chaos. That being said, I think Show should win. Because I don't see the upside in Yo. Even after the really great Super Juniors match, I know I buried him a bit, but like, I think Yo's great, but I think Show's just greater. If I was putting stock in someone, that's the guy I'd invest in long term, especially with House of Torture being this thing you want to kind of push. I'd maybe push him, but who knows? Either guy can win. It doesn't matter. I think the main thing is they need to have a really great match.
Everyone is acutely aware of how you feel about Yo.
I took it back a little bit last week. I reined it in.
We'll see what Karen thinks about you reining it in.
So who are you going with, Samsa?
I think Show's got to win. I think we're going to see some House of Torture victories over the course of these two nights. So I think Show sets that up, sets them up to have a successful, the opposite of the United Empire's weekend last year. That's
what I was going to say. United Empire lost all their matches last year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Show also with the push of House of Torture and the fact that he's still 1/3 in their 6-man champ. It makes a lot of sense for Show to get the win here. Plus, he has one of the only singles matches on night 3 in the New Japan versus Noah show as well. So yeah, I think he's going to get the win here. But the one thing I'm worried about with this whole match, like you guys mentioned, it needs to be a great match. It's the first match on the main card. Usually, the first match of the main card kind of sets the pace and the tone for the night. Normally, we have these high-flying, multi-man junior matches. These Show and Yo have been in several of those, against the Young Bucks and, Desperado and Kanemaru, or you have Roppongi Vice and the Young Bucks and all those guys. And so normally we get a nice, fast-paced, high-action, match at kickoff. Wrestle Kingdom gets in a good pace. And I'm worried that opening up with Show and Yo is not going to, get us on the pace that we need for a great night.
Well, regardless, we all got it for the Bullet Club. Bullet Club.
For life.
Yeah, Kenny's proud right now.
Sure he is.
Fergal's looking on and he's like, damn, I'm so happy Show is going to get a win for the BC, the OGs.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bullet Club, let's move on to our next matchup here. We have a preview 6-man match here. The Bullet Club unit of El Phantasmo and Taichi Ishimori and Kenta will be taking on Hiroshi Tanahashi and our good friend Rocky Romero and Ryusuke Taguchi, the Mega Coaches.
It's a preview match. You know, we got Kenta and Tanahashi the next night. We got the Mega Coaches. No, it's not the Mega Coaches. We got Rocky Romero. Oh, yeah, it is. My bad. We got the Mega Coaches against, Bullet Club's Q's tag team the next night. So, I mean, this is essentially, another like Road to preview match, which, should be good. But I don't know. I don't know if it matters who wins. I would probably say Bullet Club. 2 in a row, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to predict something like that, but I think that 10 minutes of story advancement that serves 2 matches on the next night, I think that's great. So I think what I'll be keeping an eye on is probably Kenta and Tanahashi's interactions more than anything, because I think that that's the most interesting story there. But I'm sure this will be good. It's a good group of wrestlers.
Well, I think the interesting thing is oftentimes when it comes to Road to shows and previews, usually have an obvious pin eater. And in this case, because there are title implications for all 3 men or all 6 men the next night, and there's no obvious pin eater, that's the one caveat that makes it a little bit more interesting than your run-of-the-mill preview match. And I'm wondering, if the faces come out on top, is that like overcompensating for the fact they're going to lose the next night? That's kind of why I'm thinking, if Bullet Club wins, it leaves the door open for maybe one or both of these faces to pick up wins the next night,
Yeah. I don't know. Rocky, he's been absent from the build. Also, he was in quarantine. It's his first show since being in Japan, and to build up this junior tag title 3-way is coming up. So I'm going to go with Rocky pulling an upset on ELP to get the win for their team.
Oh, see, I'm going the opposite way. I think Rocky's going to be the pin eater and make it so he has something to prove the next night. He has to overcome the loss. That's where I'm going with this. So gotcha. I feel confident. Even though I didn't put any thought into it until we got on the air. I feel confident that this is what's happening.
Well, let's move on to the next preview match here. We have the LIJ team of Bushi, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito taking on the United Empire, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb, and Will Ospreay. And with Bushi being in this match, he's probably not going to be in the Rambo, so I don't think he's going to be in that 4-way.
He might pull double duty, and that might be his excuse for why he's the pin eater in this match,
Could be.
He clearly needs that excuse.
Yeah. But I mean, Okan, Cobb, Will Ospreay, they all got shit to do the next night. So it's not a Naito. Bushi's losing here. This is your run-of-the-mill preview tag.
Well, first time getting Ospreay back in Japan since he left, and getting him in the mix here and the build for his world title match. Also, the focus here is on Sanada and Great Okan and Jeff Cobb and Naito, but still be interesting to see Ospreay there. And I definitely think could be some, little seeds planted for a potential Ospreay and Naito feud down the line.
Don't sleep on Bushi Ospreay, okay? I'm pretty sure Bushi beat Ospreay in the Super Juniors a couple of years ago.
I feel like they've had really good matches.
Everyone's had great matches with Ospreay. It's Ospreay. Yeah. No, but they did. They did.
Bushi has his moments.
No, they did. And I'm not being facetious. I'm pretty sure Bushi beat Will Ospreay in an upset in the Super Juniors 3 or 4 years ago. So, Bushi might pull one out. MX off the top rope. Fuck you, fuck you, Will. And, we ball.
Yeah, Will's definitely eating a pin to Bushi the night before he challenges in the main event at the Tokyo Dome.
He's not challenging. He's defending the real world championship.
And then we could add Bushi into the main event, make it a 3-way.
Yeah, let's add Bushi in.
Oh man!
Actually, the reason Will Ospreay hasn't been announced for the third night is because they're gonna shoehorn him and Bushi in for the titles. Yeah.
Well, I think we were, in all seriousness, we're all in agreement here that Bushi's probably eating a Tour of the Island or a Hidden Blade here.
And you know what that means? The Empire is going to finally be in the win column when it comes to Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
So good on them. Hey, how about Hanare? He's not even on here. I bet you he could be a KOPW.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah. Well, let's move on here. We have the return.
I hope he has an MMA fight with Yano and just fucks him up.
Muay Thai kickboxing match.
Like a Muay Thai jungle fight. Like kickboxer. They have to like put their like gloves in glass, like a Taipei death fight, you know? I want to get this ghoulism going into New Japan, you know?
Dan Coffin
GCW
approves.
influence.
Well, let's talk about the return here to Wrestle Kingdom for Katsuyori Shibata with still a unknown opponent. This week we learned about the rules for this matchup during the Wrestle Kingdom press conference, and Shibata spoke about the rules, and he said, I wanted to give this a different name to the grappling exhibition match I had with Zack Sabre Jr. and set it apart as something else. Grappling rules is a concept that is already common in MMA where strikes are banned. Catch wrestling rules is something that I think could be specific to pro wrestling, and that's why the name change is there. To explain those differences with grappling rules more specifically, I think it allows for moves using the ropes or more pro wrestling styled three-dimensional, if you will, expression than a grappling match. Victory to a pro wrestler comes down to skill and technique in the environment, and it strips pro wrestling right down to its essentials. To go to the roots of wrestling a bit, pro wrestling sprung out of what we call the Lancaster style in England, and that's something we mustn't lose sight of. I want a fusion in NJPW that brings the base fundamentals to the fold. It's something that's just the beginning, and I think these rules, match times, and things of that nature can change as the concept evolves. That is it. So we are getting a catch wrestling rules match for Shibata and his mystery opponent. Seen a lot of discourse on this announcement. Some people think it's a scam, that there should have been more, outright with what this was going to be. What are your guys' thoughts on Shibata's catch wrestling match here?
Well, when he came out to announce, I guess, his return, he said he has a match on January 4th, and he has a match on January 4th. So I think that's awesome still. It's of course, like a touch disappointing that we're not jumping right into Shibata, like 100% just back, right? But I also think there's a really good chance that somebody kicks him in the head, and that's the first big Shibata feud after this match or during this match or whatever. So I think it's a little bit of a slow burn, but I think we're gonna get there. So
that's interesting. So you think that, because some people are assuming this means he wasn't actually cleared, he's not cleared, and you're thinking that they're going to play off on those fears by continuing to do exhibition style wrestling matches, but then someone crosses the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an
interesting way to look at it.
That may be now, right? It depends on what they want to do or who's around or who's there. But yeah, I think that's I think that's the end game. Maybe it's not at Wrestle Kingdom to get that huge heat or whatever, but I do think that's going to be the trigger point where you can see him in a regular match.
It's not like this company's ever done anything to get, massive heat at Wrestle Kingdom before.
They would never.
They would never do that.
No, Kenta's never done that.
Yeah. There's a few things I think about it. Well, my first question before I give my thoughts, did they specifically say that this was going to ever be a real full rules wrestling match? Was that ever said, or was it just strongly implied? I mean, it seemed like I listened to Kevin Kelly on the call and he seemed to have thought that was the case.
Right. I don't think it was ever advertiser said that, but after the Saber Shibata match, Shibata was like, the next time you see me, it'll be, in my gear in a match. And then he comes out and he's like, I have a match January 4th at Wrestle Kingdom. And I think the assumption was, the last match was an exhibition. He wasn't in his gear. He said he's going to be in his gear. It's going to be an actual match. And so I think that's where a lot of the discourse comes from here.
Sure. And I mean, I wouldn't be so obtuse as to be like, well, they never promised it, because I've seen other fan bases do stuff in defense like that. And, I can see how someone would be upset if they were expecting, based on the way it was handled and treated, that it seemed like Shibata was coming back for his debut into full combat with strikes and everything, the regular rules of pro wrestling as we're accustomed to. That being said, as a diehard Shibata fan, I'm just happy to see him compete in any form, period. We were asked this question when right after the G1, how you and I, Jeremy, would feel about if he were just to only be utilized in this kind of capacity. And we both said that would make sense, especially if he is not cleared to take contact strikes to the head, And I do, in a certain sense, I still think that he probably isn't cleared. Maybe he is. Maybe they're holding it tight to the, close to the chest or whatever that saying is. But there was an interview recently, and I saw the transcript of it, and they asked him if he was cleared. And he said, only I really know what the deal is with me and the doctors and what I can and can't do. And maybe that could play into what Chris said, where he is cleared and they're going to utilize that for storyline purposes. And I mean, that's possible. But I've always been adamant since this show started that this guy probably had his, skull sawed off and had to be surgically repaired and replaced because of the subdural hematoma. And I mean, that doesn't seem like the kind of thing you come back to wrestling from. It just doesn't. And I don't think he ever probably will do full wrestling. And I mean, as sad as that makes me, I do think that that's the reality of the situation. I think the fact that he's able to walk and compete and do the things he's doing, that's amazing, And I have seen people say like, oh, the company scammed us. And maybe they weren't as forthcoming, but who knows? Maybe they were waiting on a clearance. Maybe they're trying to work things out behind the scenes that we don't know about. And I'm not saying that I know that that's the case, but that is a possibility that they're trying to work out all the details, The other thing, too, is it could be something like what Chris said. There could be a swerve coming that we don't know about. My whole thing is I don't really care. The fact that Katsuyori Shibata is going to walk into the Tokyo Dome wearing trunks with all those adoring fans, whatever the attendance actually ends up being, and is going to compete in a real match. Now, it's not an exhibition. It is catch-style wrestling, but it's not an exhibition. It's a real wrestling match. A lot of people probably don't know this, but in the origins of pro wrestling, you couldn't hit people, okay? You couldn't throw even, not just punches, you couldn't chop, you couldn't headbutt, you couldn't clothesline, you couldn't throw European uppercuts. If you go back to the early days, and I know we're in a different era, but I mean, there was a time in the 20s and the early part of the 30s and prior to that, pro wrestling was wrestling. It was literally wrestling. And I do think that there is room for something like an attraction like that or a division like that, like what he's discussing, that could actually be a viable addition to what New Japan proclaims themselves to be, the king of sports. We've seen ROH kind of experiment with the pure division and that sort of thing. Who's to say that a pure wrestling rules division that is just simply catch wrestling couldn't do well, I mean, for my money, most shows I watch when we have young lions, yes, they strike, but most of what they do is fundamentals, and it's vastly better than most of what's on those Road 2 shows that we end up watching anyways. I think that there is room for what he's doing, whether it just becomes the Shibata sideshow deal or whether it could branch off and be this other division that's not like KOPW, that's not full of Satori, that's not full of bull ropes and what, you can't use your finisher and shit like that, but something that's actually pure wrestling in a company that's supposed to be sports centric. It makes sense to me. So I'm all for it. I guess it depends on who he ends up wrestling. We don't know who that is that night, but considering how great of a wrestler Shibata is, a guy named The Wrestler is going to go out there and be in a wrestling match. I don't know. People who complain about this, it makes me wonder, I don't know, are you a Shibata fan? Maybe not. Are you a wrestling fan? Maybe you think you are, but you might just be a fan of hard hits and flips. And those are cool, fun, and exciting parts of wrestling. But wrestling is still wrestling. And a lot of people don't get wrestling. even though they think they do, I don't think they actually do, because wrestling is pro wrestling.
Yeah,
it's grappling.
Yeah, the grappling is obviously a big part of that. And Josh, as you know, in training, a lot of what you learn when you start wrestling is wrestling. And that's why usually amateur wrestlers do so well in that kind of transition, because they have that kind of grappling background that can kind of adapt that pretty quickly. And, you know, bringing Shibata out here, I kind of at first I did thought it was going to be a regular match, kind of the way it was positioned, but you know, it being a catch wrestling rules match makes a ton of sense with his health condition. Also, we don't know, like you guys mentioned, all the details and the full facts, but I think if this is going to be the deal going forward, I do think, like you mentioned, it'll be a welcome addition to a card. It could be a special attraction thing. I don't think this is the kind of thing that's going to die in front of a New Japan crowd. I think there are a lot of people who they see bad grappling on indies and they'd say, oh, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see somebody hugging somebody. I don't want to see people just sitting in quote unquote rest holes. But when you have the right guys, I mean, you look back to the exhibition match with Shibata and Saber, people love that match. That was 5 minutes, super high scores on grapple and cage match, and all they did was grapple. And so if you have people in there who know how to grapple and wrestle and make it compelling and tell a story, I think it'd be great. You have guys like Shibata and Saber, great Okan, Kota Ibushi, guys who really can grapple in that division. Eventually, when you get Filthy Tom over there, there's so many guys. I mean, John Gresham, there's so many guys in New Japan and on the scene right now that really excel in this style of just pure grappling and wrestling. And I think it can be done really well. And I think, yeah, if they want to do like a catch title or you have catch division matches, a catch tournament, I think it could be something new and unique. You know, people always want new and fresh, and that was their, you know, defense for Evil and KLPW. Well, I think catch wrestling could be something new and unique that could actually elevate and help the product going into this 50th year. You know, the old work is the new work. You know, I've heard another famous podcast use that terminology. And I mean, there's truth to it. I mean, back in the olden days of wrestling, there used to be a catch title, and then there was a Greco-Roman title, and then there was mixed rules title, which kind of amalgamated into what we called the pro wrestling world title, the one that, you know, was held by Joe Stecker and, you know, Haddock and all those guys, you know, Hackenschmidt and Gotch. But there was a time where, like, when you'd go watch wrestling matches, they do like 2 out of 3 falls. And one fall would be catch style or folk style, and another fall would be Greco style. And then there were guys that were billing themselves as like just the Greco world champion and just the catch world champion and just the folk. And they had different rules, you know? Like, I'm not saying that like everything should be completely like that, but I mean, I don't know. I just don't see why that couldn't be appealing, especially with like, let's be honest, you named some really great guys there, Jeremy, but how many guys in New Japan can't actually grapple on a high level? My guess is not many. I think almost everybody on this roster is the cream of the creme, you know? Right. They can fucking grapple and tell great stories. And he brought up a good point there. There are things you can do in the parameters of that kind of style rules match that you can't do when strikes are available. When you change those rules there, it changes the entire storytelling element of the match. You can get new stories, new match styles. Like, I don't know. To me, I'm willing to at least, I'm not saying it's going to work for sure, but I'm at least willing to gamble on it and give it a shot. You know, I'm much more positive on this than I was on KOPW. That sounded so far to left field from what New Japan is. This sounds like something that really is in line with Antonio Inoki's idea of strong style wrestling, you know? And I'm sorry if like people don't like it, but I mean, it's a wrestling company that promotes sports style wrestling.
Well said.
Well, we did have some questions here on this. First from our buddy Rich Ladd. He says, why does the Shibata return not stink?
Is he asking us because he thinks it stinks?
Yes.
He hates it, yeah.
Oh,
He thinks it's a scam, that they're pulling on the heartstrings, and that, you know, something was up when an opponent wasn't announced. So,
well, I mean, it doesn't stink because Katsuyori Shibata is going to get in the match into the ring, and the bell's going to ring, and he's going to compete, and that's awesome considering the man pretty much died, backstage a couple of years ago. So
that's true.
So this is all good. Like, there's no, you can want what you want out of it, right? Like, you can want Striker Shibata, and you can want all of that to happen. I've been a believer that this man doesn't step back in the ring and get beat up at the G1 final and I without some sort of building clearance, right? And we're still building upon that clearance, right? And if getting in the ring at Wrestle Kingdom for a catch wrestling style match is part of proving to doctors or the office that he can do this at a high level, he can do this in a way that is safe for him, whether that means he continues on with this or they use strikes as a way to build the next, story with him. That's all good for me, because just seeing the guy get back in the ring, even just for the grappling exhibition, was a big moment, right? Like, and that's amazing and it's cool, and you got to believe that there's an end result that they're hoping for, whether or not they are actually going to get there. So, but everything they're doing is potentially checking in on his abilities to do this safely, right? And maybe it's not to the level of brain scans after every match like Daniel Bryan or whatever, whatever they were doing when he came back to WWE, but this is a step, and I think any step is a good step when it comes to Shibata getting back in the ring.
Who knows how long those tests continued? I've heard rumors about that company, right, that they're not always about keeping up with their testing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I've heard that.
I can totally understand this from Richard's perspective, especially if you've kind of been unplugged from New Japan the past year. Not, it's been a down year for New Japan for most people, and interest has been down, and you're not getting maybe as many big matches as you expect. And for somebody like Rich, who loves the hard hitting, high pace, high flying style, and you think of Shibata, yeah, everybody wants to see Shibata go back out there and do what he was doing pre the injury. Everybody wants that, but I think at the end of the day, it's what can realistically happen. And I think the catch wrestling is what they can realistically do right now with his current clearance. And like you mentioned, Chris, it could be a swerve down the road, and this is kind of a building point. And to me, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's a great attraction. I think it's a great addition to the card. You look at these Wrestle Kingdom cards, we have a lot of rematches. Not a lot of fresh, feuds or ideas or concepts, and I think this is something it's an attraction. It's fresh, it's cool, and it just brings something different to the table.
He asked, "Why does it not, or why does this return not stink?" I can only think of positives for the most part. The only ways it would now, granted, if you feel like the company pulled a quasi bait and switch, I get it. You know what I mean? And there could be some people complaining about the fact that there's not an announced opponent. I'm guessing they're going to deliver on a high caliber opponent. I don't feel like it's just going to be, I don't know, someone that sucks. You know what I mean? I think the feeling is Katsuyori Shibata returning is the draw, and doesn't necessarily need to be bolstered by a name like Sakuraba or Minoru Suzuki, even though those might be the people he ends up facing. I think the fact of the matter is the fact he's even returning. That's the draw. So they get away with that. And then now they have an element of surprise they can throw into it to make it extra special, whoever that may be. So I don't really see that as a negative. The only ways it does suck is if the match ends up being bad in some way, if Shibata gets hurt, never should have been back in the first place. That's about it. That's all I can really think of. I mean, sure, would I love for what I've pitched in the past to come to fruition where he becomes a full-time active roster member runs through a New Japan Cup and ends up facing Okada, that gives me chills, sure. But like you said, Jeremy, I don't know if it's realistic that could even happen. The one other thing, the only thing that I actually talked to Rich and he kind of complained about this, is that, Shibata's not a spring chicken. He's an older guy who's kind of on the downside of his career with all these ailments, obviously. He's taking up a roster spot from someone else that could have potentially pushed. My question is, like, who would you have rather, in this particular instance, rather have seen in a singles match that would have been more meaningful or a bigger deal? You know what I mean? Like, certainly, yeah. But I mean, did we need to see Aaron Henare or, I don't know, like GOD or someone else that's not on the card kind of get pushed in this way? I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like the fact that Shibata's coming back to wrestle a meaningful big match against someone in a big spot, this is a big fucking deal. And it's going to help the numbers of the show. People have complained about New Japan feeling the same and being the same old, not trying new things, not doing exciting things. Now they're doing something new, fun, and fresh and exciting. And there's some people that are kind of, shitting on it because they don't think this guy could be IWGP champion. I don't know. Like, I'll probably shed a tear when he wrestles. So that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, and I could see that argument of Shibata taking a quote-unquote spot if we weren't in COVID and you didn't have guys from Strong, Philly Tom, or Chris Dickinson getting a shot, or Bryan Danielson coming over, or whoever with the door being open, like Kenny Omega or somebody.
But you know what all those guys want to do?
Wrestle Shibata.
They all want to wrestle Shibata. Like everyone that you've mentioned, like they all. That's like one of their top guys. They want to wrestle.
And I should backtrack a little bit. I don't think Rich said those exact words. I think that was sort of something he kind of implied. Just the fact that Shibata's older. Why are they kind of, maybe they should give it up on him? And maybe he's right. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know. I feel like this is going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah. And I think we're all in agreement he's probably going to win this Catch Wrestling Rules match.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that at all. I mean, it really depends on who he wrestles.
Yeah. Well,
I guess that's the next piece of speculation to do, right? Like, who's X?
Which we have 2 questions about it. Rainbow and Sandpigs is given the announcement of Catch Wrestling Rules for the Shibata match. Is it reasonable to believe he's not fully cleared for regular matches? And based on the style of match, who is the most likely opponent?
So we already talked a lot about the clearance, but I think that there's 2 ways that they can go with this, right? I think it's either Ren Narita, like somebody that he's worked with for a while, right? And like Narita, he's got this Shibata-ism thing going on, right? So, and I think that could be a cool thing. And then also either guy can win.
He's domestic.
Well, that's exactly it. It brings Narita back to Japan. So that, and it's a big spot for something like that. Or you go with, I mean, there's certainly the chance that it's a guy like Suzuki. There's certainly a chance that it's a guy like Ibushi coming back. But, I think they've probably got Ibushi flagged for top of the card stuff when he comes back. But then you've still got Suzuki. And Suzuki in a match without strikes, that's a different Suzuki too, right? So I think that could be actually really fun. And because I think a lot of what Suzuki does is the same strike exchanges every, at least on his US tour, he did a lot of strike exchanges. So you remove that from his game, and I think that could be really fun. So, but I honestly, I've got a feeling I'm going to be surprised it's not going to be any of the people that I mentioned.
A few names that haven't been mentioned. So everyone you mentioned, those are definite possibilities. I think maybe like Gabe Kidd, since I think he might be able to get back in the country, that's a possibility. Yuji Nagata is another name that could be a possibility, given his history. I think the fact that it's a catch wrestling match makes me feel stronger that it could be Kazushi Sakuraba. I know that there's the Noah tie-in, and so that kind of opens things as well. But I mean, these guys fought each other in MMA. They trained together. There was a mentorship. They were tag team partners in New Japan. They had a feud. big match blow off. There's a lot of history there, but there's also the fact that Kazushi Sakuraba is simply the greatest Japanese MMA fighter of all time. And he's simply the greatest Japanese catch style wrestler there ever was. And there's a lot of special meaning there. And I feel like that could be the guy. Plus, he's got a history with New Japan as well. I did see some people saying it could even be like Fujita, although that might have been prior to the rule change, and I don't know if Fujita can still, I don't know if he was ever much of a grappler more so than a striker. Those are the main guys. I mean, I would like it to be like a Josh Barnett or someone like that, but I don't think that that's feasible for him to get into the country. So, I mean, some of the names I listed, I think those are possibilities. I don't know if there's anyone else you've thought of, Jeremy.
No, pretty much you've thought of everybody else. I mean, like you guys said, it would be cool if it was like an LA Dojo guy. Like if you could get Fredericks or Connors or Coughlin in there, that would be cool. I think Narita is a really cool option as well, especially with this whole like LA Dojo feud with the United Empire that's been going on, and United Empire's all going to be in Japan. You could run that angle that Chris was talking about and have like Ospreay or somebody come out and like ruin that whole moment with Narita and Shibata. But if I had to put like my bet on it, I would just go with Suzuki for right now. He's one of the biggest stars on their roster who doesn't have anything. If not, I mean, he'll probably be in the Ramble if not, but if you want to give him a big spot, I think that would be cool. And I think people would lose their minds if they hear that Kazunita Ray come on after Shibata comes out, and you have this kind of big matchup with these two legends and a catch wrestling style. And we know that Suzuki can wrestle that style. He doesn't have to rely on the strikes, and he's a very great grappler as well. Like you mentioned, Chris, that'd be a totally different Suzuki, a fresh kind of matchup. He has to kind of break away from his kind of tropes and patterns that he does to have great matches, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Another one last name. I saw this. I think it's highly unlikely, but I think it should be at least mentioned on the air. I know he's retired, but it's not necessarily a full rules pro wrestling match. Could be Liger. And that would be something special too, and would like really mean something. He's a guy that has the grappling like background to do it too.
That name crossed my mind, and I just like didn't want to put it out into the universe because
as we said,
that's too good when it really comes down to it. But
as we said off the air, I'm willing to say the things that other people don't want to really say. And eventually you're going to have to disassociate from this podcast.
It's going to happen.
We had a similar question from our user Batsu Bob. He said, any predictions on who will face Shibata, and how do you feel about the match rules in place? He says he's personally happy to see him back in the ring, and the match type will bring something new to the product. Yes, I agree.
We are too.
So let's move on now to the never open weight title match with the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii defending the never title against House of Torture's Evil.
Yep.
Any fun stats, Chris, to make this match any interesting?
Yeah, kind of. So Ishii's 0-3 in singles matches in the Tokyo Dome. So you got to figure this will be the time he's truly got the crowd behind him for so that he can get off of that slide. So that I guess is something, right? But here's the thing: people root for Ishii anyway. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, that's the stat. Last year was only the second time at the Tokyo Dome that the never openweight championship was defended successfally, and it didn't change hands. So we can hope for that streak to begin here. But really, when it comes down to it, yeah, I mean, these guys haven't had a ton of build up, and they haven't had a ton of interaction to start to build what this match is going to look like. So I am curious what the wrestling portion of this match will look like, and how House of Torture breaks down someone as like truly strong and established like Tomohiro Ishii. So I think that's another different kind of dynamic here. So yeah, I'm rooting for Ishii. I do think he'll retain. If I had to bet, this is the House of Torture match that they don't win. If they don't go for a big clean sweep storyline. So I think there's a good chance of an Ishii retention here.
Yeah, it's tough for me on this one, just because I'm also thinking, not that it's as important, but obviously we've got the 6-man tag team titles the next night. House of Torture has a new unit. What matches they do or don't win is going to kind of be paramount for them, just because they're a sub-unit in its infancy. And I'm kind of looking at this match as well as the Show and Yo match that we talked about earlier, and I'm wondering how that's going to play into the following night's 6-man tag match. And I do think they play one off another. And I mean, obviously, if Evil wins both of those matches, he walks out as a double champion. They haven't really been too prone to do double champions unless it was like in the main event. There was that time when like Juice had an opportunity to win the tag titles and the US belt. They didn't do that. I've got a feeling, and I don't know what's really going to happen here, but if Evil wins this, I think they're dropping the 6-man tag titles back the next night. And that could make sense if like him and Show both win, and then they lose the follow-up match the next night to Chaos. Chaos gets a little bit of comeuppance, and then we kind of go from there. That might make sense, but Ishii did just win this title. Then again, it's the Never belt, which has seemed to kind of be slotted back to where it was previously. We thought it got elevated this year, and sort of slowly crept its way back into the number 3 spot and sort of, become the Ishii belt once again. So it's really hard for me to say. The one thing, though, Evil versus Ishii, I'm not excited about it. In the past, they've had great matches with one another, but the one singles match they had ever since the House of Torture stuff was terrible. I mean, it was literally abysmal. And very few Evil matches in this current iteration have actually even been passable. The only thing that makes me think that maybe it could be good, it's Wrestle Kingdom, and it's Tomohiro Ishii. So, there's some hope. But, man, I've got a feeling like, God, I hope they don't do some bullshit here. And the stuff that was said during the press conference where Ishii said, like, you could do whatever you want, cheat as much as you want, hit me with as many weapons as you want, bring as many guys as you want, I'm still going to obliterate you. That made me feel like, oh, fuck, you might lose because of the House of Torture shit. So I'm hoping for Ishii. And I think it'll be Ishii. But you can't really discount Evil, especially being like a former world champion, It's hard for me to think that the former world champion is going to lose to Ishii in the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, but that former world champion's Evil, so...
I know.
Yeah, like you guys, I'm not thrilled for this matchup. I personally believe this match probably would have been Ishii versus Jay White had Jay wanted to come into the country. They probably would have not had it at Battle of Valley and had it here. But we're getting the other Bullet Club leader here with Evil. And again, like you mentioned, Josh, this could be a good match if we had LIJ Evil, but with Bullet Club House of Torture Evil, there's going to be tons of shenanigans, grow up wires, ref pullouts, and we've seen Ishii have compelling matches with guys who cheat a lot. Also, he didn't with Evil last time they faced off, but with the right match structure, I think that they could have a decent match here to the point where we're not completely pulling our hair out. And
pretty sure Evil in 2016 had the shortest never openweight championship reign.
He did.
Yeah, 10 days. I mean, I knew it was short, but I think that's the shortest.
In Singapore, and then dropped it back. I forget, what was it, King of Pro Wrestling after that? And he dropped it back? I don't remember.
Maybe
something like that. It was
very
late.
short. It was both Shibata.
Yeah, he lost he beat Shibata in that weird show in Singapore, and then he won it, and then he lost it on the next show. Which
he lost it back in Singapore. He won it at Power Struggle.
Oh, you're right. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, but that is, I mean, people forget Evil would be a 2-time never openweight champion because that was a forgotten reign.
It happened.
It did happen.
It made no sense why it happened. It made, I don't know.
Yeah, and something else to think about here. We've seen all this year titles being coupled together: the junior title, junior tag titles, the never titles, never 6-man titles. So we could easily see Evil win this and be a double never champ and retain the next night and use it to set up future feuds for him going forward.
Could be. Interestingly enough, Ishii's not in that Chaos 6-man trio the next night. So, Evil's got match the next night, but I don't think Ishii does. So who knows? But, I don't know. Ishii just won this belt, but it's also the never title, which doesn't have a great track record of getting defended successfully in the Dome. And, very often people do lose it in their first title defense. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Let's just, hope for Ishii here to get the big win.
I'm going to say Ishii. But I don't feel strong on it at all.
Yeah. Let's move on to the IWGP Tag Team Title match. The champions, the Dangerous Techers, Taichi and Saber Jr. They'll be defending their titles against the winners of the 2021 World Tag League, Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi.
The press conference for this match was pretty funny because Goto and Yoshihashi just cut the most standard by the numbers promo. I don't even know if you call it promo, just remarks,
statements.
And then statements. And then Taichi just looked them up. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna try our best. We're gonna do it for the people. We're gonna win the title." He's like, "You guys are abysmal promos." And it was pretty funny. But there was one thing Zach said that was pretty interesting, where they buried Chaos, but then they talked about how these guys have improved and have really made a name for themselves over the past year. And they said even though they're not on Dangerous Techers levels, they have to admit that they've worked themselves up to this point. And, ZSJ was like, if you told me a year ago that I'd be wrestling Yoshihashi in the Tokyo Dome, I would think my career taken a very, very low fall at that point. But he was like, at this point, he was like, you've got the Tokyo Sports Tag Team of the Year, the top team in the entire world, basically, the Dangerous Techers, going head to head with the World Tag League champions. And he's like, that's a great match on paper, and I think we're gonna have a great match. So I think that based on the history of these two teams, they probably will go out there and have a great match. I'm hoping Dangerous Techers retain. They don't need to. There is a good story there. If Yoshihashi picks up his first major title, I mean, I know he was never champion, but this would be a big step up for him and Goto if they win these titles from the Dangerous Techers in the Dome. But and actually, I think I'm going to predict that. I think I'm going with Chaos on this one, just because titles change at Wrestle Kingdom, and I don't know. It's the tag title, so what does it matter?
9 straight Tokyo Dome cards have seen the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships change hands.
Jeez. Well, if there was a team that wouldn't break that streak, it would be Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto.
That's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah, 9 straight. That includes Wrestle Grand Slam and last year's, the previous, 7 Tokyo Dome shows. So, yeah, it's a lot. It seems to change hands most of the time. There was a stretch here in 2000 to 2008 where it didn't change hands at all.
Was that the Cho 10 and 10 Koji years?
No, most of the defenses are. Yeah, there's a Tenkoji. There's only one Tenkoji. One of them was Tanahashi and Nakamura.
Oh yeah.
One of them was Tenzan and Chono.
Yeah, Cho 10.
Yeah. Okay, and then Suzuki and Takayama in there. So that was on the Noah show.
Those are some great team. That's when they had some great tag teams back then.
That's some good. I mean, that was a good run. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the safe bet is to say that the titles are going to change hands, but also
It's the Dangerous Techers.
Dangerous Techers doesn't have that big Tokyo Dome win.
They've never won in the Dome.
Right. So it's kind of like running it back on the Tamatanga Tangaloa, the GOD story from last year. So we'll see.
But if they don't win, then that means maybe we get more of them in the future. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Goto and Yoshihashi here just because those two guys have a match on night 2. They're going to be in the 6-man title match, teaming up with Yoa Challenge, House of Torture. So I think they need a win on night 1, build some momentum for night 2, and also that'll play into the result there. But yeah, I'm going for a title change here.
But if they lose here, then it means they might be more likely to win the next night is what I'm thinking.
Right.
And so that would actually make it more likely that Show and Evil win as well. Potentially.
Yeah.
Depending on your bookings, philosophy, I suppose.
Yeah.
The match will be good, though.
Yeah, I think it'd be really good.
Yeah. This will be a great match. So I think this is one of the IWGP tag matches that I've looked forward to the most at Wrestle Kingdom. So it usually gets kind of buried and lost, and it was the same guys for a long time. So it is nice to see this little chaos duo get into it.
Yeah.
There's a match with Killer Elite Squad versus GOD that like really over delivered, and I will always stay. Oh no. It was LIJ versus Killer Elite Squad, and
oh yeah, that match was great.
Yeah,
and it was fucking great.
Yeah.
And people did not think it was going to be great, so I'll always stand by that match.
Yeah, this should be a really good match here. And that'll take us to our semi-main event of the evening for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. The champion El Desperado will be defending his title against the Best of Super Junior 28 winner, the ticking time bomb Hiromu Takahashi.
If you've been watching New Japan for any length of time, there is so much history between these two guys. Going back to the time period when Desperado was Hiromu's, senior when it came to the Young Lions, and he just fucking sunned him the entire time. And then, the various different wars that they've had with one another over the title in the Super Juniors, over the subsequent years. And it kind of all came to a head last year at the Super Juniors finals. That very famous match did really well in our voting. And when Desperado's mask was taken off and exposed, and he wrestled the rest of the match, maskless, which was like kind of crazy. And now we're kind of here full circle. But in this case, Hiromu's the challenger. Desperado has sort of made his name and, kind of claimed his reputation within the division. And it's sort of, we're in a similar position with Hiromu where, year after year, he's kind of back at the starting point, challenging for the title. 2 years ago, it was against Will Ospreay coming back from injury. Last year, it was facing off with Ishimori, kind of, trying to come back to the top spot. And it's like, this would be the third year in a row he could do it if he is able to. And in that same respect, El Desperado has something to prove here where, like, he's been a top star in this division and he's been the champion, but he's still kind of always been in the shadow of Hiromu the whole year. And if he were to get that big win over Hiromu, which he never really has, won a big time main event against Hiromu, and to do it in the Dome as the defending champion, kind of exercise that demon, it would be a big deal. One thing I would say from the press conference, if you didn't hear Desperado's remarks and the promo he cut, I thought it was the promo of the entire press conference where I was like, holy fuck, this guy's really good with words. Like, and he started talking about how, like, ever since Hiromu came back from Excursion, Hiromu's been a top star headliner in the division from the get-go. And he was like, I came back, challenged Ibushi in a nothing title match. It meant nothing. He's like, we challenged the Young Bucks together as a tag team in a tag match that meant nothing. It was like, I had bad storylines and bad matches and I wasn't ready. And he was like, and I've sucked since I came back. And he's like, and then I've tried to improve year over year. He's like, but then Liger retired and I wasn't good enough. He's like, instead of me and Hiromu against Liger and Sano, it was Hiromu and Dragon Lee. And he's like, and it should have been me, but I wasn't good enough. He was like, I only just now got good enough. And I was like, oh, fuck. And he's like, before we walked out to that match last year, Hiromu whispered to me and he said, let's show these people what our history is really all about. And he's like, when we go out there this night, I'm going to bring that full circle and let everyone know what my history is really about. And I was like, oh, fuck. I want this guy to beat Hiromu's ass. And I'm like, not even the biggest Desperado fan, but I'm like, like this division's like clamoring for like a top star and like a guy to get made. And like, it's literally thirsty for someone to step up and fucking do it. I think Desperado should like just go do it. And like, I want these guys to go out there and have a banger and just have a classic, maybe steal the show, maybe be the match of the year. I don't know. But like, I want them to fucking do it, And I want Desperado to win. And I think he might. Like, I know, Jeremy, you said that like, because it's the 50th year anniversary, they're gearing up for guys that they think can like draw. And obviously Hiromu's like the more obvious choice there. But they should go with Despy.
I think there's a chance they go with Despy. I think there's a chance Despy wins this. I think as I'm looking at their 2021, they both had really similar records, really similar booking patterns, really similar strengths and weaknesses, really, when it comes down to it. And then they had that big draw during Best of Super Juniors. Hiromu obviously won the final last year, but they've split before that. So there's a lot to work with here. There's a lot to work with. So I think that they're going to come out. I think you're going to see this be probably the longest junior heavyweight championship match ever in the Dome. Potentially getting up there with some of the longer junior heavyweight championship matches of all time, outside of the Dome too. So, because I think the story is they need more than 30, right? So they went to the 30-minute draw. Hiromu beat Despy in 30-14 at the Best of Super Juniors finals. So you're gonna see a long match, I think, and something weird happened if it goes short, right? Or maybe that's the tease, and then they end up going 20 or 19 or whatever. So, but yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I do think this is more of a coin flip than we give it credit for. I think everyone thought Hiromu was gonna come back and win, and beat, was it Robbie
Eagles?
Yeah, right.
Wrestle Grand Slam.
Like, everyone figured Hiromu was gonna win that match, and that's not how that went, right? So, maybe the fun for Hiromu's in the chase, and maybe that's because there isn't a ton of new star power in the IWGP Junior Heavyweight division, but Desperado is definitely a guy that they can continue to go back to.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense here for Desperado to win. If I was booking, that's what I would go with. You need to break that booking pattern of Hiromu, comes back, wins Super Junior, goes to the Dome, wins the belt. That's happened the last 3 years now, and I think you really need to break that pattern and make it not obvious thing that Hiromu's just going to win Super Juniors and win the belt in Tokyo Dome. So I think it helps break up that pattern there if you have Desperado win. Then also, I think we've talked about it several times on the show now. The junior division needs more stars and need more people they can count on as a draw. So I do think having Desperado here get the big win over Hiromu in a stellar match in a semi-main event of the Dome would really establish El Dorado and put him on Hiromu's level. And then he could definitely be a guy that can count on in the 50th year to main event more shows. Because we saw in the Super Juniors, they weren't really fully behind Desperado. Hiromu was in a ton of those main events. Despy did have some main events, some semi-main events, but I feel like we had more Hiromu main events. So I think this could be the big match here that finally gets Despy on Hiromu's level and gets him to that star power and drawing ability that they want him, and he could be very useful going into next year.
Yeah, I'm also looking here and just to see what the highest any junior match has ever been slotted. And I'm just now seeing last year Hiromu and Ishimori, they were in the semi-main event of night 2. And prior to that, juniors had never even been to the semi-main event. This feels bigger than that in a certain way, though.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, the Hiromu and Ishimori, they have, they've had an interesting rivalry, but their matches have kind of been split where some people like them, some people don't. I feel like everybody loved the Hiromu Despy series, and this is like a long rivalry that goes back to Young Lion and Dojo, and so I think there's a lot of history. You look at all the junior tag stuff that they've done with them and L.I.J. and Suzuki and just all the matches they've had over Super Juniors. There's so much rich history and rivalry to pull from here. I definitely think this is going to be more impactful, more influential than the Ishimori match last year.
Yeah, and the Ishimori match last year only had a one-day build because Hiromu had to beat ELP on night 1 and then go into night 2 as the contender, because they did that Super J Cup versus Best of Super Juniors situation. So I think that this match getting a proper build with the Road 2 shows, with this long-standing rivalry, and both of these guys' desire to headline the Tokyo Dome at some point. I think there's so much more to draw from when it comes to this particular matchup.
Yeah. We had an interesting question here from Reddit user Less Commission 7252. Do you guys believe that the junior title match could have been a mask versus title match? I wouldn't mind seeing Desperado wrestle without his mask.
It's been thrown around in the past. There's been mentions of it in, interviews and post-match comments and stuff like that. Not specifically with these particular wrestlers, but just the concept of Desperado being in a mask bet match, or potentially even, there's a lot of like wrestling journalists and pundits that talk about him losing his mask, the symbolism behind the Desperado persona versus, I forget his real name, Mikami, I can't remember.
Mikami.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of lore there. And I can't say that I'm like the keeper of the lore, know all the intricacies of their feud in that manner. But, I feel like it's big enough without needing to be. I mean, it's all about the title. I don't see where his mask really plays a factor into it, other than a year ago they had a match where the mask came off. If it had played any sort of role in any of the Super Junior matches that they just recently had, or the preview matches, then yes, maybe. But I don't see that that's necessary right now. Maybe down the line.
Yeah, I do think there's a possibility that they are building towards like a mask versus hair match. Maybe not even like with the title, but something a little more classic.
Lucha.
Yeah, a little more lucha. Yeah. Which would make sense with these two. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world.
And that's a big match that you can do down the line of draw for another show. Like you mentioned, Josh, like the title is the key here. Like that's the key draw, this title and this rivalry. And I think you can save that the hair versus title for another big show that you're going to do later. Maybe Dominion. These guys run it back, and none of them are the champion. Like you mentioned, Christian, it's a non-title. We have this personal blood feud, mask versus title. We need to settle this to prove who's a better man, kind of thing.
Yeah, let's be clear. This is not a blood feud right now. Could it develop? I mean, I think it's verging on potentially being able to cross into that boundary. But right now, it's more of a professional rivalry. Like, yes, there's personal vendettas involved, but they're not like trying to kill each other. This is not like Suzuki Liger from a year or two ago, where they're like trying to kill each other. That's usually when you need to put the mask or the hair up, is when it's like, just going by like the tropes of lucha, like it's usually when people hate each other, and they kind of admire each other. Sometimes I wonder if like Hiromu's in love with him, actually. Which might be part of the story. I don't know.
Yeah.
And what you need for that to turn into a blood feud, though, is you need it to be a balanced rivalry.
Right. So you need Despy to get the big win here.
Right. So you've got it's pretty even so far, but Hiromu seems to, I don't know, it just seems so clear that he's the bigger star. But yeah, like Despy needs the big win. And I think if we see that, then I actually think we're going to see a lot more of these guys interacting or keep coming back to it as this kind of generational rivalry, which I think is fine. As long as you can kind of filter in other people and all that. And then eventually it'll make sense for them to feud without the title, if that's the direction that they want to go. Because I would love that. I would love a mask versus hair at a big show, not with the title on the line. I think that'd be really cool. And another one of those cool things that New Japan hasn't done anything like in a little while.
There's the other way you could go with it. You could go Hiromu wins again. And, basically Desperado wants to challenge him down the line. But I've already beaten you so many times. What do you really have that I haven't already gotten? And he's like, my identity.
Right.
I'll put my mask on the line. And but that doesn't truly feel New Japan to me. That feels more of like a Western style booking storyline. But I mean, it's always on the table.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, Chris, doing a non-title mask versus title, I think that would come very helpful, especially if we're going to see a lot of 2-night shows like we saw this past year. We're going to get like Wrestle Dontaku night 1 and 2, like you could have a junior title match one night and then the mask versus title match next night. So
yeah, there's a lot they can do. And honestly, they need these guys they need Hiromu healthy for an entire year to see what like a Hiromu arc can actually look like. Right. And they need Desperado to continue. Same deal, just stay healthy. He hasn't been quite as injury prone as Hiromu, but yeah, I think what they need the most is like to see what these arcs can really look like as designed. So I'm curious where they go with it.
So where do you guys, what's your official prediction? I'm going Despy on this. I've convinced myself.
I'm also going Despy.
Yeah, I think Desperado, and I think it becomes the story of...
It's happening. We all said so.
It becomes the story of, can Hiromu win a big match in the Dome, right? He starts to have this monkey on his back, and I think eventually he gets that big win, maybe in that main event, right? So I think there's a story to be told.
You said Hiromu.
Mm-hmm.
But he beat Will Ospreay like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but then he's lost the last two. If he loses again here.
But he beat Ishimori.
He lost at the Dome. Wasn't the Dome? He was on the Dome show earlier this year, right? In July?
Oh, yeah. He lost to
Eagles.
Robbie Eagles, but he's got a history. No,
I know. He's 4-1 in the Dome.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I was like, what? I was like,
But it becomes this thing where he's on a losing streak then. Okay. Right?
A downward trend. Yeah.
Yeah, a downward trend. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, did I misremember these matches?
No.
Did we go into a different alternate timeline? Like, is this a Mandela effect shit? Like, what's going on?
The multiverse where Hiromu...
But you need to have a reason. You need to create a reason to root for Hiromu in the Dome. Right? So losing a couple even, I think, gets you there.
I think Hiromu needs to go to a dad status, like basically Tiger.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I mean, maybe he would stop injuring himself then. He's on the Makabe bump count.
That's what people say about Tanahashi. He seems to be doing okay.
Oh, man. Well, let's move on to main event of night 1 here, the IWGP World Heavyweight title match. The champion, the Rampage Dragon, Shingo Takagi, he will defend against the G1 Climax champion, Kazuchika Okada.
Big match, Okada coming in with that V4 belt. Who knows what the fuck that's about? But... Shingo and him have faced twice this year. Once during the New Japan Cup in the first round. Shingo beat him clean as a whistle. And no one really kind of expected that. That was a big deal for Okada getting knocked out of the first round of New Japan Cup. Shingo kind of lost back-to-back big main event matches to Will Ospreay. Sort of seemed like he was getting cycled out of the title picture. Ospreay gets injured. we kind of go to a de facto number 1 versus number 2 scenario, which ends up being Okada versus Shingo in a rematch during Wrestle. Was it Dominion or Wrestle Grand Slam?
It was Wrestle. Well, I think it was Dominion.
It might have been Dominion.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Shingo wrestles Okada for the vacant title, and to everyone's surprise, Shingo beats him and becomes the third ever champion in this title's lineage. And here we are. Okada won the G1, and there's big implications because the next night, the winner of this match has to fight the challenger in waiting, which is Will Ospreay, on January the 5th. And the big question is, does Shingo have Okada's number? And does he just have the formula to beat him and prove that he's truly the ace? Because that's kind of always been the question when you have a guy that can beat a champion who's established long term. Can they beat them on the big stage in the Tokyo Dome? That's always been one of the big tests. And Shingo beat him twice this year, but if he were to beat Okada in the Dome, that's a big fucking deal. Vice versa, can Okada win the IWGP World Title for the first time ever? And he's talked in the press before about he's got secret plans for the V4 title, and what does that mean, and how's that going to play into the fifth night? And then considering the fact that both of these guys have long histories with Will Ospreay and have compelling stories to kind of tell going into that match the next night. It's anyone's call, but I'm thinking personally, this is just my opinion, I don't think New Japan ever intended for Shingo Takagi to have held the title going all the way to the Tokyo Dome. I don't think this was ever the plan. I think this was more of something that needed to happen due to COVID. And he did a fantastic job carrying the company. And would I love to see him and Will Ospreay the next night? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I do not see Kazuchika Okada losing 3 times in one calendar year to Shingo Takagi. As much as I love him, as awesome as he is, I just don't think that that's how this company operates. And I feel pretty confident that Kazuchika Okada is going to beat Shingo Takagi and walk into January 5th as the world champion.
Well, Okada is 4-3 in main events at the Tokyo Dome. So the chance of Okada losing does obviously exist, right?
Right.
So, and I think there's a lot of people who think Okada's a shoe-in to move towards the next night. The real story is Ospreay and Okada, right? In the Dome, the whole thing. It's a rematch from last year, blah, 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 right? So, but with that said, like I said earlier in the show, anybody in New Japan can lose on any given night. So Shingo winning here wouldn't be unprecedented, I don't think. I don't think it's likely. I think Shingo has had a hell of a year. He did win a main event in the Tokyo Dome earlier this year, right? He had that moment in that building. And he's had a really good run with this title. When you say you don't think Shingo was the guy who was kind of marked for this event, this particular event, I think of Kota Ibushi.
That's exactly what I mean.
Right. So I think of Kota Ibushi getting a defense between the G1 and Wrestle Kingdom, and I think that the little trio then becomes Okada, Ibushi, Ospreay. So Shingo, by everybody else's misfortune, has been an incredible champion. And I think that that's awesome. And I think that he's one of my favorite wrestlers, top 5 all time, probably. And this run has been really fun, and I'm glad it happened. But I do see the case for taking the belt off of him and kind of seeing what he can do without the championship. Can he be a main event guy as a challenger? Can he be a main event guy through a tournament? Et cetera, right? And I think that, Okada, the build is there for Okada. His year has been really good, especially G1 on. So I think Okada's got the momentum to take the belt off of Shingo here.
Yeah, this is going to be, first of all, it's going to be a great matchup. I'm one of the guys who love the Shingo Okada matches. I know not everybody is super high on those matches. I love their matchups and think they have some great chemistry. So I'm looking forward to the main event. I'm kind of in the same camp as Josh, as where I'm thinking I have a hard time seeing Shingo beat Okada for the third time in a row. Like I mentioned earlier on the show, we're getting ready to go into the 50th year. There's going to be a lot of special shows. You need business to get back to where it was pre-COVID. They're starting to open up buildings in January. Corkin Hall is going to be able to do full capacity. And also, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID, but they're trying to increase capacities in these buildings. And so to me, I think it makes a ton of business sense to put the title back on Kazuchika Okada. He was the guy where business was booming. They were the highest business they ever done. And I think it would make a ton of sense to put it back on him going into the 50th year. He's the ace, and just really have him have a banner year and lead the company in getting back to where they were pre-COVID. Now, from a booking perspective, personally, I think it makes more sense for Shingo to win. I think the real story in this whole three-way is who is the real world champion. Yes, Okada won the G1. He pulled out the V4 to represent that. But I think the real story here is between Ospreay and Shingo. Like, Ospreay never lost a title. He was stripped. Shingo has not beaten Ospreay this year and hasn't proven that he can beat Ospreay and beat the champion. So I think there's a more interesting story, and I wish that they would have done Shingo Ospreay night one with the winner facing Okada, because there's so much dynamic and promos and back and forth in history with Shingo and Ospreay. It just makes more sense. All right, let's determine who's the real world champ between those two, the undisputed champ, and then that person faces the G1 winner. But what's done is done. They went the other way, and so I think Okada's going to get the win here, and that plays back into the rivalry that him and Ospreay had.
Yeah, I think it's tough when it comes to that whole thing, just because Ospreay wasn't necessarily available for the full build in Japan to kind of make this whole thing coherent. I think they tried their best to kind of bridge the gap between like the San Jose show and video promos and everything. But I mean, this has been less than coherent. And I mean, let's be honest, the last 2 years of Double Gold Dash, whatever you want to call them, main event builds haven't really been the best. And in fact, this might be one of the better ones of the three, just because it at least kind of somewhat makes sense. But you're right, Jeremy, you touched on something there. It's like, who is the true world champion? And this harkens back to me. You know, a few months ago, I was doing studies on like the 1920s, 1930s, and there was title claimants that would spring up and different boards, you know, across the world and globe that would give recognition to different world champions. And then eventually they had to have a playoff between all these guys to like reunify the titles. And we're talking before the NWA, before WWF and all that, like when there was it was just a Wild West of like, you know, New York calls this guy champion, Boston calls this guy champion. Well, you know, all three of these guys kind of have somewhat of a legitimate claim depending on what logic and methodology you use. And by the end of the two shows, we're going to have one world champion. They could have given, if you put enough like money and production behind this, you could have really had an awesome like build and, you know, promotional. But going into the show, this doesn't feel the same kind of hype as like Okada Tanahashi did, or Omega Okada. You know, it's not quite like that. Could have been. Unfortunately, it's not. But you know, Chris, you had mentioned Okada's lost in the Dome 3 times. Well, you know, doing some quick math, 2 of those times was to Tanahashi when he was on his way up to being able to finally unseat him as the ace. And then the other time was to Jay White in a non-title undercard match, which was a big deal, but it wasn't, you know, the main event of the Dome.
Well, yeah, so I said he's lost 3 main events. So the Jay White was not the main event.
Gotcha. I apologize.
The Naito match.
He lost to Naito. That's right. So that's 4. That's 4 big.
4 big losses in the Dome total. Yeah, and then 3 of those were actually in main events, though.
Okay, gotcha. Well, yeah, it's with them going to the 50th anniversary. I don't know. It just feels really hard for me to believe that they're going to have the Dragon Gate guy and the UK guy, the Gaijin, battle it out to see who's really the true representative of New Japan Pro Wrestling as the true world champion. I think Okada's just coming up aces on all this, like, because he's the ace, and I don't think either of these two guys is going to be promoted as the ace of the company, and I don't think that's either of their stories right now. Maybe down the line it could happen, but Kota Ibushi, Ospreay, Shingo, all great talents, all great champions. None of them are like true blue, full-fledged New Japan dojo type guys that went through that system. It's been a break from tradition entirely since they introduced this belt. If Okada were to win it, he'd be the first real, true, traditional New Japan guy to even hold that title. Going into the 50th anniversary, I think that's what they're going to do. I think the match is going to be great, but like the more I think about it, I think Okada's going to win. Now, last thing I will say, there is a story in place with Shingo and Ospreay where Shingo has never beaten Ospreay on the big stage. He's beaten him once in the G1, but when it comes to tournament finals, when it comes to title matches, he's never done it. And, in the past, we've talked about how they're setting them up for some point in the future where Shingo does unseat him in some respect. Maybe now's the time where they could do that. And if he did win, that's a possibility. But I think it's just going to be Okada. I think that's what we're going with.
Yeah, my head says Okada, my heart says Shingo, but gonna have to go with my head on this one, and I think Okada's gonna get the win.
Who did you guys think was gonna win the Dominion match? Like, did you guys think they're just gonna go with Okada?
Yeah, I thought Okada was gonna win.
Yeah. I think a lot of people thought, they're just gonna go with Okada.
Yeah, and even though they put Shingo over, I just don't think Lightning's gonna strike twice. Are you taking Shingo?
No, I would never.
So why are you trying to make us feel bad? Right?
Don't be silly.
But dude, I'm telling you right now, I will mark out so hard if Shingo laughs with the dragon this man right on his head and freaking wins. I will lose my mind.
That'd be wild. I mean, yeah. I don't think now's the time. I actually think New Japan Pro Wrestling needs Kazuchika Okada on top now.
Yeah.
Like they probably need it yesterday, but they need it now. And they also need Shingo and Ospreay and Ibushi and Naito and honestly guys like Jeff Cobb or Sonata even again to like start to step up and get their asses back in that main event picture, right? So I think there's a lot of interest in kind of this. I don't even want to call them like a new wave, but like some of these guys who have been elevated since Okada's had the title last.
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of interest in what does a guy like Jeff Cobb look like in an IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match, right? A guy like, gosh, I mean, even going back to the Sonata coming back on, and the next night with Ospreay, if that's the direction they go, like there's so many guys in different spots now. And then if the borders open, it's a whole different thing too.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like, in the past, last time Okada held the title, people complained because like we had this legendary run and then he's kind of running out of challengers. We've seen a lot of repeated matches. What else is there for him to do? He's had so many title defenses and yada, yada, yada. Well, it's a new title. It's a new company in a certain sense. It's a new era. And like you just mentioned, if you think about it, like how many guys are out there for him to like defend the belt against it? He never really has. I mean, you got Shingo, you got Ospreay, you got Jeff Cobb. I mean, even like Tama Tonga was kind of elevated, has a story there. There's like quite a few people. And then like you mentioned, if you open up those borders, and then plus, who knows? AEW's been mentioning Okada a lot. Part of me kind of wonders, like, why have they been doing that? Maybe they're privy to the idea that maybe he's going to be an integral part. Well, obviously he's always integral, maybe they know something we don't know, about like his positioning in the company going into the next year and how important he might be, So, I mean, I don't know. Like all signs point to Okada for me.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to do cross-promotional cards like this Noah card, right? If you're going to do that, you want your title on your guy. Right? And honestly, like, the calendar is going to look a lot different this year. Hopefully it's going to look back to normal. We'll probably learn that on one of these nights. But hopefully, and I probably should have brought this up during the junior title discussion, but like Best of Super Juniors might be in May, right? Like we might be back to Best of Super Juniors in May and G1 in the summer. And then, so the opportunity for a little bit more of a reset and a little bit more of a classic run of like timing and things of that sort. Like, I think that Okada's the right pick to go into the match against Ospreay, at least. And we'll talk about that as we kind of go forward here, I think.
Yeah.
See website for details on our 2-month subscription offer.
Ladies, lose weight, improve your health, and eat great with Nutrisystem. Get our new premium meals with up to 30 grams of protein. They're big and filling and taste delicious. Plus, try our new restaurant faves that taste like your favorite restaurant, portioned with half the calories. Beef and bean burritos, toasted ravioli, sesame beef and broccoli. Easy to prepare and made in minutes. The secret? Advanced nutritional science that helps keep your blood sugar levels steady and you losing weight. With Nutrisystem, you get your breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and snacks all delivered right to your door. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/meals right now and get 50% off. You heard me right. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meals right now and get 50% off all plans. Don't wait. This special offer will not last long. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/meals right now and get 50% off. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meals.
Well, let's move on to night 2 here and run through this card real quick. So, opening match, we have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match. We have Flying Tiger, the champions, Robbie Eagles, and Tiger Mask, defending against the Mega Coaches, our good friend Rocky Romero and Ryusuke Taguchi, and Bullet Club's cutest tag team, El Phantasmo and Taichi Ishimori.
This is one of those 3-ways that I don't really mind because I think the junior tag 3-ways are usually kind of a good time. It's fast-paced. It's a great opener. As for who's going to win, I actually think the Mega Coaches might win this.
I do too.
Yeah, I think we might get a run with Romero and Taguchi on this next tour, and it'll be really fun. It'll be awesome to see Rocky in there all the time, and I think that would make Taguchi the 69th junior tag champion. So, and who doesn't love a gimmick run? So I think that there's a good chance that happens. So, and I think either way, you can kind of anticipate Eagles and Tiger's Mask losing because, peek behind the curtain, I'm pretty sure Robbie Eagles is booked for some stuff in Australia in the middle of January. So he's finally gets to go home. So I wouldn't imagine he's carrying that belt with him.
The press conference for this was really funny in a lot of ways because freaking El Phantasmo came out wearing a Tiger Mask 3 mask and said that he's the real Flying Tiger and that he's wearing the mask of the best Tiger Mask, which like everyone knows that Tiger Mask 3 is the worst, even though it's Koji Kanemoto, it's the worst Tiger Mask. And that was really, really funny. And then he talked about how he's got the greatest super kick in the history of New Japan. No, not just New Japan, pro wrestling. No, not just pro wrestling, combat sports. The greatest single super kick in the history of fighting. He has it. And he said he's going to give a sudden death to every single person in this match, which I was like, that's hilarious. And then, freaking Ishimori mentioned how he lost recently in the singles match to Taguchi. So he's kind of like out for revenge and has that aspect playing into it. And he even said like that he's not worried about Tiger Mask at all or about Flying Tiger in any respect because they're a bullshit tag team that just got thrown together. And and like no one really cares about Robbie Eagles and Tiger Mask, and he's not even sure how they got the titles to begin with, and like that they're basically just like placeholders and like keeping the belts warm for them. So that whole thing was, funny. And then Taguchi's whole thing, which is why I think they're going to win, and if not now, they're going to be the next junior tag team champions, whether it's him and Rocky or him and Watts or whoever it's got to be. Ryusuke Taguchi is going to be the 69th junior tag team champion, because he literally was like, my career, like at this point in my career, if I'm not going to win this title and be the 69th champion, there's no reason for me to wrestle, and I might as well hang up my boots and I might as well step away from the sport. So, I mean, like, that's how seriously he feels about being the 69th junior tag team champion. Like, he did the entire promo, like, deadpan, like he was Ric Flair in 1993 facing down Big Van Vader and his career's on the line. Like, that's what he looked like. So it's just hilarious. But, the match is going to be good. It's going to be fun. It's going to be everything that you're worried about, Jeremy, when it comes to Show and Yo on the first night. You can wipe all that aside, because this is going to be your classic, high-flying, fast-paced, sub-15-minute junior tag team match. And will there be some cheating? Sure. Bullet Club's in there. Could El Phantasmo sudden death everybody and get out of there? Sure. I'm hoping that the sudden death gets exposed.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like we're finally going to see the sudden death get exposed. And I agree with you guys. I do think Rocky and Taguchi get the belts, because I think Eagles is going back to Australia, and Ishimori's right. Flying Tigers is a random team that kind of got thrown together because there was nobody else at the moment. So I think that they're kind of out of there. And then it's down between Mega Coaches and Bullet Club Q's tag team. And it's like, do you go back to Bullet Club Q's tag team? They've been the champs a couple times this past year. It's a safe bet, but I think you need to go.
I'd be fine with them being champions again, though.
Yeah, I think they're a great team, but I think it would be cool to give Taguchi that 69th title, have Mega Coaches do a little run, if Rocky's going to be in Japan, have him do the Golden Year Series tour as champs. They can drop the belts at the end of the tour, and I think it'd be a good little business.
Yeah, this one should be pretty good. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think Mega, and also like Rocky, I think Rocky's going to be the pin eater the first night and have to like overcome that on the second night. That's my opinion. I think plus, didn't he lose to sudden death like earlier this year too? Like he's had it actually multiple times. He's had
him and ELP have this kind of long-standing back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that's going to kind of come full circle here. I'm hoping so.
Yeah. I wonder if that's how sudden death gets exposed somehow.
That would be cool.
Rocky's the guy that does it.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't, well, part of me doesn't want it to get exposed because I want it to continue because I like it. But I could see Rocky being the pin eater the first night and then helping to be like the triumphant like overachiever the second night. And I don't know if that's a career backstep because he's held the junior titles so many times, but like he's helping Taguchi to become the 69th champion. So like, there's that trade-off. I don't know. I think that they're a great tag team and like they don't get their just due credit. So I mean, I'd be happy if they won it.
Yeah, maybe you have Rocky get the boot off and use it against Phantasmo to get the win.
Fuck yeah. Sure.
So next matchup here, we have the Stardom Showcase Tag Team match.
The Young Boy Special. I cannot wait. This is my most anticipated match of the show.
Sure it is. Mayu Iwatani and Starlight Kid versus Saya Kamatani and Tam Nakano.
Yeah, this one's going to be weird because Mayu was under Starlight Kid, the leader of Stars, but she defected for Saber Unit, and she's been part of that group for a while now, and it's gonna be weird. It's like a can they coexist type storyline between those two, and then on the other side you got Kamatani and Nakano, and those are basically like your top baby faces in the entire company. So it's gonna be really interesting.
Do not take any Stardom advice, review, predictions from Josh. Completely making all that stuff up.
It's Little Saya and Big Tam, from what I understand.
So these are all four of the top women in Stardom right now, all part of 4 different factions. Also, we've seen Mayu a lot in these Dome appearances. She's the ace of Stardom. Starlight Kid, recent heel turn, part of the Oedo Tai unit. Tam Nakano, somebody that's been pushed a lot this past year as well. So it should be a fun matchup. I have not been following Stardom closely enough this year to say who I'm going to win. I'm just going to go with a safe bet and go with Mayu and Starlight.
Shuri is wrestling. Who's the champion?
Utami,
and that's title. That's the
big title match.
That's the red belt versus the SWA title, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but they're not involved in this, right?
Nope.
So I want to see that. They should just put that match on Wrestle Kingdom instead. I want to see that match instead.
Well, they have to draw for their own shows,
It's all the same company. It's all Bushi Road. Money's money. Let's get it popping, Rossi, hook it up.
I do think it's cool that this is not a 0 match, right? I think it's cool that this is on the actual broadcast, and I also think it's cool that they didn't just plop it first either. They put it second on the card. So I think that's good business, both for New Japan and Stardom, because I think on New Japan's end, they've got their guys going out there doing what openers do, right, with the junior heavyweight tag title match, and then Stardom gets pushed up the card and truly on the main card. So I think it's awesome that there's progress being made to have these companies, I guess, work closer together.
Yeah.
So Starlight Kid was in what group?
Starlight Kid was in Stars.
Okay, and she was like the young girl in the group, right?
Right, and then I believe she lost
and left to.
I think Mayu lost a match where Starlight Kid had to go to Oedo Tai.
Oedo Tai. Okay, and then Mayu Iwatani is with Star still, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then so that's kind of like a interesting thing because they're former partners. They just recently split.
Yeah.
What's the deal with what groups are Saya and Tam part of? It's okay if you don't know.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Anyways, 4 of the best Joshis out there. They're gonna fucking kill it, and I'm gonna go with Saya and Tam just because Mayu and Starlight are from opposite teams.
All right, sounds good. Let's talk about the KOPW 4-way. So the final 4.
X is wrestling X versus X versus X. So
yeah, so not much to.
4-way mirror.
But are any of these X from the Shibata match?
Yes, they're related to him.
Okay. So like lowercase and uppercase.
X1, X2. Would have an interesting
So are these all Y then? If that's X. See, my math's starting to come back
X
to me.
Junior.
El Hijo de X.
El Hijo de X. Yeah.
We did have an interesting question here from Raisin Falcons. Is if all 3 of you were having a triple threat at Wrestle Kingdom for the KOPW trophy, what would the match type be and who would win?
I don't know. If it was real wrestling, then I win because I'm the only one who knows how to really wrestle.
I don't know.
The real
What do
fake
you don't know anything about me.
I don't, but I just assume based off of my own knowledge of myself.
I can throw down. As long as if there's strikes, I can get you.
All right. So hey, I've been training. You don't even know. I've been training. I know you're.
You should see the boxing gym in my basement.
I know you're on that fight camp, but
Hey man, I can throw a right. Maybe a left.
I fucked up my elbow actually the other day. I don't know what's going on.
Now I know where to target.
Yeah. So okay, if you guys had one specialty match and it's a 3-way and it's us, what would your specialty match be?
Brawl for all.
I mean, okay. I'm going amateur wrestling rules. I mean, dust off my high school wrestling shoes and get at it.
Okay, and I'm going with the all-you-can-eat pizza eating contest.
I can throw down on that too.
I bet you can, but
So are we doing every 2 minutes we have to eat a slice, then we go back in and wrestle, come out, 2 minutes, eat another slice?
That's gonna win the poll.
No, there's no physical contact. It's just eating pizza as much as you can within a certain time frame. Yeah. I needed to ensure my victory. Plus, I don't want to be conflicted, and I mean, if it was MMA, could I thrash you guys? Yes, but like, I don't want to do that to friends, So let's all enjoy some pizza. Sam's just getting so mad.
I'm so offended. I know I'm like the nerdy stats guy, but like I can go.
No, I'm talking shit with no actual knowledge of whether I could beat you guys up at all.
I think we need to have Chris versus Josh night 1, then the winner faces me on night 2.
If I fight Chris, it's only wrestling rules only. If I fight
no
Jeremy, it's striking only.
Oh man.
Right. I don't want to fight you guys.
I kind of want to fight you now.
Oh man! Next time we're in Chicago,
go down to Dojo. Let's get after.
But we don't fight inside. Well, sometimes we do shoots there, I guess.
See,
Chris is gonna roll up the next showcase. So next up, we have the never openweight 6-man tag team title match: House of Torture, the champs Evil, Show, and Yujiro defending against the Chaos team of Hiroki Goto, Yo, and Yoshihashi.
Oh, we just like completely moved on. Like we're not even predicting who's going to win the KOPW title.
I mean, it's hard to predict when we don't know for sure who the 4 guys are going to be.
All right, are you pro Yano or are you nay Yano?
I guess that's the thing. That's the question. Is like, is it Yano or is it not?
I'm going with Yano just to be safe.
I think they'll start.
I'm going against Yano.
Yeah, I think they'll start it with somebody different this year.
I do too.
He lost it in the middle of this year, right?
Yeah, he lost the Chase.
Yeah, he sure did.
Could be anybody.
Maybe Chase starts off. Maybe Chase starts off with the KLPW.
How do you know it won't be Scott Flash Norton? You don't know.
The world famous CB.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah,
good old cheeseburger.
What do those guys have going on?
Yoshiaki Fujiwara could be the new champion. Naoki Sano could come out of retirement. He looked really good. Just 2 years.
He looked really
good. I'll be down for Sano doing some more dives.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about a real match that really matters. The 6-man never open weight tag team titles.
Yes.
Hey, those are revitalized titles.
Not anymore. They're not.
And they are inside of the held walls of Corkin Hall.
So, what are we thinking here, guys? House of Torture, are they retaining, or will Chaos can get a big win here?
I kind of hope they retain because that keeps them busy.
I think they're gonna retain, and I'm hoping like Evil lost the first night and then loses, he could just win here. It's fine.
Yeah, I think they'll retain. I think Goto, Yo, and Yoshihashi is such a weird unit. Like, if Ishii was in this match, I think maybe you could have said, all right, flip it back to those 3. I don't see them going with Goto, Yo, and Yoshihashi going forward. We're still in the middle of this House of Torture push, whatever they're doing here. So, yeah, I'm going with House of Torture retaining here.
But if we do that, we almost all said Show was going to win. So we're thinking Yo's losing back-to-back nights in the Dome, just for the record.
Yo's a geek.
I've somehow swayed Jeremy over to my side on this whole Yo.
Yo is a hoe. Sorry, Karen.
Chris hasn't even said anything.
How do you reply to that? I don't know anything about this man's personal life.
You can tell. I'm just joking.
Oh, man.
All right, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's really inconsequential one way or the other, but like it feels like they just got the belts. I don't see. I don't know. Like, I don't think Goto. Well, here's the only thing. Yeah, I think Goto and Yoshihashi are going to win their belts the night before. I think that Evil's going to lose the night before, so it just makes the most sense that Evil retains his belt.
Right.
Yeah. Evil doesn't win that much, though. I know people are real down on Evil as an existence in New Japan, but like he doesn't win big matches a lot. Like, that's the story, is that nobody wants him to win the big matches, and he doesn't. But it also wouldn't shock me, and I don't think anyone would think twice about him holding both never titles. Like, I don't think that's something that they would try to avoid. So he could certainly win both, and that would position them a certain way, I guess.
Yeah. We had a question here from Rambo and Slam Pig. Says, how is Evil booked for both January 4th and 5th, while Naito, Ospreay, Ishii, Tanahashi, either Shingo or Okada are only wrestling once? Are there any metrics on whether Evil is actually over with the Japanese fans because he has go-away heat with the Western audience?
Well, I don't know about those metrics, but in 2021, only one person in New Japan wrestled more matches than Evil, and that was Sonata. So Sonata wrestled in 133 matches, and Evil was in 127. So, Evil's overall winning percentage was only 488. So he's basically 500 on the year. So again, he doesn't win a lot. His matches actually are pretty short when it comes down to it too. Like, so the House of Torture matches, I know they get kind of panned as being, these super long matches that all of a sudden have a run in or, whatever it may be. So his, of the top, I guess 3 or 4 guys, he has by far the shortest total match length. So those are the metrics that I know. He wrestles a lot and he was on a lot of shows. So I don't know if that means, I don't know what that means to New Japan. It's got to mean something, but, as for them being over with the Japanese crowd one way or another, I see more House of Torture shirts in the crowd when I'm watching these shows than I would typically anticipate, just based on the reactions that the group gets. So
Dick Togo pays people to wear those shirts, bro.
Well, that's a strategy. That is a strategy. Just how Tony Khan buys all the tickets to all their shows. So I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, get something over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, right.
Long-term strategy play. The more people that are in the audience, the better it looks on camera. The more likely it is to get a lucrative TV deal. Everybody knows this. He's investing in himself.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say about Evil and why he's on both. I mean, he's on both nights because his style of wrestling also allows him to wrestle a lot or be in a lot of matches because it isn't intensely physical. I mean, like, whoever, if it's Okada doing 2 nights, right? Like, that's really hard. 2 main events at the Tokyo Dome, and think about Kota Ibushi's, Tokyo Dome run last year. Like, what an incredible feat that was. Yeah. And then, you think about, I guess, Okada or Shingo doing the same thing this year, and either one of their styles wrestling 2 nights in a row is really, really hard. So, and Tanahashi, if you're adding him kind of to that list, like, he's got one great match in him, and I don't think he's got 2 nights in a row in him right now, just based on what I'm seeing on these Road 2 shows. Now, I don't think we've seen the last of peak Tanahashi by any means, but right now, like, he had the 4th most matches in New Japan last year, and that is not the place that he should be, right? Like, a guy like Tanahashi should not wrestle 122 times in a year. Like, right. He should be featured more, and he should build big stories. And, a lot of those are tags, obviously, but still, I mean, that's a lot of travel. It's a lot of getting in the ring. It's a lot of being places. So, he's kind of the guy at the top of that particular list that's kind of like not like the others in the sense of his age and his, the miles on his body.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about some of this. Ospreay is actually in 2 matches. Just for the record, the question made it sound like he was only in 1. The other guys mentioned, Naito, Ishii, and Tanahashi. Think about how old they are. Think about how many miles they have in their bodies. You know what I mean?
Well, Naito's also in 2 matches. He's in that preview.
That's right. He's in a preview match too. So, I mean, it's not as much as Rainbow Slam Pig made it seem to be. The other thing too is, like, Evil is he's a title holder. So he's got to defend his title. He's also in a singles match. So, I mean, it's fine. I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, this is
It looks like a lot of these guys are in 6-man tags.
right.
Because that's what the Evil match on the second night is. It's 6-man tag, even though it's a title match, so it's got a little more weight to it.
That was going to be my exact point, literally.
Yeah.
I was like, it's basically another quote-unquote preview match just happening the next night, and there's a title attached to it, so it seems more prestigious, more important.
Well, it is.
It is. But only by a half measure. It's not that different from what's going on the first night with some of these other guys' matches, like you mentioned.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I feel like it should have been Jay versus Ishii here if Jay would have gone to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. So
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
We don't even know if he was.
Well, they already did. They already ran that. That's how Ishii got the title.
I'm saying, I think they would have done.
You think they would have waited?
They would have waited to do it at Wrestle Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
No, they just used those American shows to get their titles back to Japan.
Yeah.
Brilliant, really.
Yeah. So up next, we have a singles match between Sonata and the Great O-Khan.
Two things I will say. Number one of the big takeaways I got from the Road to shows that I saw, Sonata versus Great O-Khan might actually be really good.
That's going to be awesome.
Based on the interactions they had during the... Now, here's the thing. I've always said Sonata is a better tag wrestler than he is a singles wrestler. So there are times where I get really invested in him in these tag builds, and then he doesn't really perform at the level that I know he can in the singles matches. So I'll throw that out there. But based on how they were wrestling with each other during the Road to shows, I feel like this match could be pretty good. Which, a lot of people have there's a lot of detractors for both Sonata and Great O-Khan. You know what I mean? The other thing, too, is I thought that the press conference was very interesting between Sonata and Great O-Khan. And Sonata during press conferences is awesome. Every time he does a press conference, he comes out dressed to the nines. He has like very sharp and quippy type of things to say. And I'm like, why isn't this guy presented? Why is he presented as this vanilla, bland, mute character? Great O-Khan even called him a mute during the press conference. Like, Sonata was praising Great O-Khan on his individuality and his like style, his fashion sense and yada yada. And he was like, but I've got a gift for you. And he presented some magazine that Sonata was on the front cover of, and it was called Gift Magazine. And it had him in a suit, and it was very glossy. It looked like a legit, I don't know, some sort of style fashion magazine in Japan that he must have graced the cover of. And O-Khan like fucking ripped it up and said like, he's like literally like, this guy's a mute, and like suddenly he wants to like, get cute with me, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I don't know. Sonata, if he was presented the way that he is during the press conferences, he's a guy I could actually get behind. But this match is going to be good. I know last year we had questions about Great O-Khan, and Sonata hasn't had the hottest year. He's far cry from the G1 winner or, runner-up that he was, a year or two ago. But I think in a certain sense, this is a little bit of a crossroads match. I think it's an important match for both of them on this stage. But I think it's going to be good. I've got more faith in this than the Show-Yo match, just for some context. I think it's going to be very good. And I think I'm going with O-Khan.
Yeah, so both these guys have great grappling. I think people underestimate Sonata's grappling as well as Great O-Khan's. And
I think that's why I'm bought into it.
Yeah, I think these guys will have, we've seen like Sonata and like Osprey and Sonata and Saber. That's kind of the grappling and awesome that happens there. So I think we'll see some of that there. And we know O-Khan did his excursion in Rev Pro. Sonata has history as a Rev Pro challenger, and so I think that this could be a match that really suits both of their strengths and can highlight both guys here.
Yeah, cool thing about this match is it's actually the two wrestlers in New Japan with the most overall victories last year. So O-Khan had 86 and Sonata had 80. So kind of a need, probably not on purpose by any means, but maybe subconsciously that's a way that they've both been really strong. I know that neither of them really had a big singles push or singles success last year, but a lot of success in the ring either way. So I know, I watched back the Kota Ibushi Jay White main event from last year's Tokyo Dome earlier today, and I had completely forgotten that Sonata was the guy who came out at the end of that. I think that kind of says a lot about the way the rest of Sonata's year went. He kind of got wrapped up in the tag division, but not. I mean, with Naito and all that, and that was a good run, but it wasn't really long or defining by any means. And then he had a kind of blasé G1. So I'm curious to see who comes out on top here. I think if I had to bet, I would think United Empire is going to get a lot of key wins on this particular night, leading up to the main event with Will Ospreay in it. So I'm going to bet on Okan winning this particular match.
I would want Okan to win, but something is telling me that Sonata is going to win just because he is a former G1 finalist and has challenged for the IWGP title so many times. And I do think Okan needs a big win. They've kind of failed to follow up on momentum of him when he gets big wins, like when he beat Naito this year. But I just feel like they've invested so much in Sonata that I could see him getting the win here.
That would make sense. I mean, he's sort of like I don't want to say a company guy. He didn't come through the dojo, but I mean, he's been there for so long. Oftentimes the more established guy is the one that gets the win.
Yeah. I had a question here from Hawaiian Punch BV. Says, if Sonata was in another Pure Wrestle company, do you see him being the top champion for that company? There's always those rumors that his end goal is to be with WWE. If he was in the WWE, how bad do you think he'd fail? I'm asking these questions about Sonata because recently his rival Kai became Open the Dream Gate champion. It got me thinking about Sonata's career.
I don't know. The whole thing with Sonata's career is it's a big can of worms, but we've seen him in other places. We've seen him in All Japan, and we saw him in I believe it was 0-1 and everything like that. So I mean, it's not like he has even in TNA, So I mean, we've kind of seen him through the years. Do I think he could be a top guy or top champions elsewhere? Yeah. I mean, he's got the look, he's got the skill, the talent, the presence. The one big drawback is his charisma and his, talking ability. And even those things I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe they're downplayed a little bit, maybe kind of muted and could be accentuated, to be better. Who knows? I don't know about the whole WWE thing. I know it's been brought up in the past, but, I don't know. I think most guys that are top guys in New Japan could probably be top guys elsewhere. That's just kind of my feeling.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Anyone who's main evented for New Japan could probably take the ball and run with it and pretty much anywhere else. So whether or not they were the top guy in New Japan, right? Like Sonata's, he doesn't win a lot of these main events that he ends up in, but he's totally capable of being in those main events.
Definitely agree with both of you guys. So let's move on to our next matchup here. Special singles match with Tetsuya Naito taking on the Imperial Unit Jeff Cobb.
I have a little concern. I think the preview matches have been great. I think the post-match segments have been great. From an in-ring standpoint, everything's been awesome. Some of the interactions during the press conference were like a little too familiar for my taste and kind of reminded me of like what we don't like about Jeff Cobb in the past. Like he's too docile, too friendly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it seemed during the press conference. Like he didn't seem like Jeff Cobb, the Imperial Unit. He seemed like Jeff Cobb, the Aloha good times, like, kind of chill bro type of dude. And like, I'm like, I don't want to see him. I want to see the fucking killer that ran through the G1. I'm sure he'll turn on the day of the show though,
Mm-hmm.
Naito always, say what you will about him, I can't remember a time where he hasn't delivered in the Dome, and Cobb is just on an upward trajectory right now. And this is kind of a crossroads match for both of them in a certain sense. Naito talked during the press conference about how like this past year wasn't a great year for him. He didn't have a lot of great big wins. He wasn't sort of in the limelight, he was kind of on the back burner the whole year. And if he were to lose and not take a step forward going into 2022, he starts to become irrelevant, and he can't really have that happen. His goal, he said, for next year is to be in the main event of the Tokyo Dome in 2023. And in order for that to happen, he has to have a phenomenal year in 2022. And he said he has to turn Jeff Cobb into a stepping stone. On the same token, Jeff Cobb kind of needs that big signature win over a top star outside of a G1 on a main stage like this. So, this is kind of that match that gives me those like future IWGP World Championship title challenger, de facto, number one contender type of feels. And I feel like it's going to be very good. I know maybe some people are kind of underplaying it because it's Naito and he's, on the downside and he's had health issues and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. I just get the feeling like that Cobb's on a different level right now. Naito's probably revitalized because it's the Dome and they both got something to prove. I've got a feeling that this is also going to over-deliver, just like I feel that way about Sonata and Great-O-Khan. I think I'm going with Naito on this one. I don't know. Maybe I should go Cobb. But that's what I want to have happen, but I don't know if it's going. This is one where I'm really what do you guys think? I'm really torn on this one.
So I think Cobb wins because I think Okan's winning the match right before it. And I think that we saw United Empire lose everything last year. And the build up to the main event of this match of this show,
they won everything going into the main event.
Is that they'll win their tag match the night before. Cobb wins, Great-O-Khan wins.
Clean sweep is on the table.
Clean sweep is on the table. Now,
wow,
it's on the table, right?
Right, it's on the table. Is
right,
it gonna happen? We don't know.
Exactly, we don't know. The real story, though, is if Shingo somehow wins night one, then all the singles matches on night two are, well, not all the singles matches, but all the United Empire singles matches are also United Empire LIJ singles matches, which then adds another wrinkle if that happens to be the case. Now, we already dissected that, right? Like we're all pretty sure that that's not going to be the case, but if it is, it's even another wrinkle that you would say, well, your understudies both won, so you would think that the cards are in the favor of Will Ospreay going into the main event, right? Because what they need to do, though, is create this reason that Will Ospreay is the favorite going into that match. Because I think ultimately people are going to be believing that he's going to lose, because I think the likely opponent's Okada, and everyone thinks he's kind of the heir apparent right now. So there's a lot to that, but I think the turnaround of the United Empire at Wrestle Kingdom is a story worth telling, and then it does plant this seed of doubt that Will Ospreay is going to end this whole thing as the champion, the actual champion.
Yeah, I love that booking, and I also think that Cobb is going to win. Also, like you, Josh, I do think it's going to be a de facto number one contender match, and with us thinking Okada is going to win it all, we know the history between Okada and Cobb. I think that would be a great first challenger for Okada at the first big show for 2022 after Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, that's true. The thing is, part of me just feels like Naito should go over Cobb in the Dome.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like we talked about, sometimes the more established guy wins,
right?
But is Naito's maybe too big of a name to be the next title challenger at, say, Golden Series or even New Beginning? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Especially if Okada's the champion,
right?
Naito's not the first challenger.
Right. They're saving that down the line.
Or even if he was, you'd want to do it in like a Budokan Hall or Sumo Hall or something.
Well, they've got Budokan for
New Japan Cup.
New Japan, anniversary show too.
Right.
So right. And
but they're not, but that's a different title defense there.
Right. I think you guys might have sold me. I'll go with Cobb. Plus, they're really investing in him heavily. I mean, just look at SG1. So that'd be such a big deal for him to beat Naito. There's a part of me that finds it hard to think Naito's going to lose a singles match to Cobb in the Tokyo Dome. So that's one where I'll ride with you guys, but I don't feel confident at all one way or the other. That's one where I'm I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, this should be a great matchup. Then our semi-main event for this evening is the Iwgp U.S. Heavyweight Title no disqualification match. The champion Kenta will defend against the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi.
So we've seen Tanahashi and Kenta have several matches over the past few years. The matches are always good to great. They've never, in my opinion, truly bad match. And in fact, the last match they had that I recall was really awesome. So looking forward to this. The build's been here and there. I think that they've kind of made up for it a bit during this Road to Tokyo Dome series. They laid out Tanahashi on the chairs and everything like that. And like you guys mentioned, there's a story where can Tanahashi get down and dirty with a cheater like Kenta, and the no DQ stipulation is on the line. So how is that going to play into things? It kind of remains to be seen. Plus, traditionally you think about like a no DQ match, you think about like Naito and Jericho in the Dome, and they were able to kind of like go into the crowd, and some of those parameters, they're not going to be in play just based on COVID and everything like that. So I'm wondering how they get to utilize the no DQ rule. What areas can be in play, what areas won't be in play. It's hard to say, but again, another 50-50. I think Tanahashi might pick up the win here, though. But I mean, I don't know. Nothing's for certain. It is really hard to say. I mean, Tanahashi's been looking like he might have needed to have taken off World Tag League, and he didn't. And his physical presence doesn't seem to be at where we're used to it being, as far as like his just fitness and cosmetics and everything like that. He's kind of moving around a little rougher than usual. Kenta hasn't been around as much. I'm also kind of wondering whether the Kenta Noah connection and everything like that is going to have any role to play in this match. But I mean, could I see Kenta retaining? Sure. Do I think Tanahashi having a feel-good moment in the Dome, winning the red belt again, could make some sense going into the 50th anniversary? Yeah, I do. So I'm just going to hedge my bets and say Tanahashi because I think it's safer, but I don't really know. I think the match is going to be good, though, because it's not just the same match we've seen time and time again. It's no DQ, and that is a wrinkle to the feud that they've had. So it does add, it adds an extra element. Plus, it's the semi-main event, so I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I think this match is going to be really good. I don't think this is one that a lot of people are flagging as like the match that they're most looking forward to, but coming out of it, I think it's going to be a match that people talk about. As for the winner, it is a coin toss. I could see the reasoning for, I guess, the four singles champions to all be baby faces coming into this 50th year, and those are kind of easier stories to tell as you really kind of relaunch things. So that would mean Tanahashi would win, Okada would win, you could have Ishii retain, and Despy or Hiromu, I guess, could either fit that kind of fan favorite. But right. So part of me thinks that that's where we're headed. We're headed towards a lot of feel good, and that would mean Tanahashi winning this, and like finally after even half the match or 3/4 of the match, like finally having that moment where he does something, a little nefarious to kind of turn the tide against Kenta, and I think that's the moment, and everyone will be excited for it, and then Tanahashi very potentially comes out on top.
Yeah, I feel like so much of this build has been Tanahashi getting jumped and not being able to handle the no DQ rule. So I think we'll see like Tanahashi kind of embrace the no DQ and kind of surprise people and get one up over on Kenta. So I like Tanahashi going in to the 50th year as U.S. champion, especially there's been so much that they've teased with Tanahashi being the guy in Forbidden Door and doing some stuff in AEW, and obviously Mox is still in recovery right now, but there is that Moxley match down the road that they've been hinting at and building to. So I could see them wanting to get the red belt back on Tanahashi, so eventually he can go back to AEW, have that Mox match, and maybe do some other, we don't know what U.S. pay-per-views they're going to do this year. We saw 2 this last year with Resurgence and Battle in the Valley. If they're doing some other stuff, Tanahashi would be a great guy to send over again to headline those shows. So with that, let's move on to the main event, the IWGP World Heavyweight title. We have the winner.
Before we talk about that, I did want to point one last thing out. I forgot to mention this. During the press conference, Yujiro Takahashi's comments on the Never 6-man trio from Chaos was just fucking incredible. He was talking about how Yoshihashi said that when he won the Never titles, that he was going to defend them forever. And obviously he's not, because he's challenging for them again. And he said, you need to apologize to everybody in this building and to everyone in this business. And then he told Goto that Goto probably makes up the stupid tag team maneuver names that he comes up with for him and Yoshihashi, and that they're stupid and they don't make any sense, and he needs to just walk away from the sport.
Damn.
So I didn't want to continue on without addressing that. That Yoshihashi is fucking, or Yujiro Takahashi is incredible on the mic.
Well, so our main event here for night 2 IWGP World Title, we're all thinking it's going to be Okada that's winning night 1. Okada versus Ospreay here, and I think we're all going with Okada, right?
I don't think there's a 0 chance that Ospreay leaves as the champion.
Right.
I do think that there is the possibility of that happening, but I think if you're making me pick and predict, I'm predicting that Okada goes through. I think that's the clearest path. But I do think if I'm ranking the 3, I think it's Okada, Ospreay, Shingo. That's the order I would put them in for likelihood to walk out of January 5th as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion.
Well, we've kind of talked exhaustively about Shingo and Okada, but let's shift the focus over to Will for a moment. His whole entire argument is that he never lost the title. He was stripped, and he didn't feel that he was rightfully or just fully stripped of the title when you kind of compare other similar circumstances like the Jon Moxley situation, which I think he's got a point there, and then when you kind of look at the different stories that he has going back and forth with Shingo, it's interesting. With Shingo, he seems to have Shingo's number. He's beaten him in every major encounter they've ever had. And so that would kind of be a situation where, can he do it again against Shingo after Shingo has tasted the title, after he's been the guy carrying the promotion, as he's kind of transcended that never bruiser type of role and kind of become the man in the company. That's a different, it puts them both on different platitudes than they've been in the past. With Okada, it's a whole different story. He's never beaten Okada in a fair major singles match. Yes, he did beat him in the G1, but he cheated. And prior to that, he had never defeated him. And then last year in the Dome, he didn't defeat Okada. And Okada has beaten him in every single major singles encounter they've ever had. And he was his big brother and his mentor and all that sort of stuff from Chaos, the defection. It's always kind of seems like at some point, Shingo is going to get the comeuppance on Will. Likewise, it seems at some point, Will's going to get the comeuppance on Okada. And I don't know if this moment, this night, is going to be the culmination of either of those two stories, If Okada were to beat Will once again, it's just a continuation of LOL, Okada wins,
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say, and I wonder how the company is kind of taken, I don't want to rehash old history, but everything that happened with Will when he was champion and, his decision to go home. And it seems like that's kind of water on the bridge, but I don't know if they're going to trust him going into the 50th anniversary as like the guy to carry the company, to carry the belt with the history of neck issues. And he went home and he didn't come back for G1. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It seems to me like he'll probably lose no matter who it is.
Right. It seems like a kind of a risky booking decision to put the belt on Ospreay right now just because of the whole code situation. And I don't know exactly what his plans are. If he's staying after Wrestle Kingdom, if he's going back to the UK, he's doing some stuff in the States. Who knows exactly what he's going to do. So I think you need it on a domestic guy, somebody that's going to be there no matter what. So I think it's really down to Shingo or Okada who's going to walk out with both as the undisputed champion, and I think it's going to be Okada.
So Ospreay hasn't lost a singles match since last year's Wrestle Kingdom to Okada, like anywhere. So I don't know. There's something to that, and like you guys were saying, it could be the continuance of Will can't beat Okada clean or in the Dome. And I think that's the big story is Will beating Okada clean in the Dome. But I don't think this is the moment for that. I don't think Will's hot enough for that right now. So maybe after a big G1, I don't know. I think there's something, there's more story to be told, and I think the end result is Will finally getting a big win over Okada, but I don't think that the timing is right to do that now.
Yeah. And we did have a statement here from Reddit user Pussy Destroyer 83619. It says, I want to plead my case on why
Whoa, hold on. When your name is Pussy Destroyer, you don't plead for anything, okay? You don't plead your case when your name is Pussy Destroyer. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, they say, I want to plead my case on why Ospreay won't win at Wrestle Kingdom. There's a pattern forming around double night Wrestle Kingdoms, and it's if X wrestler is fighting Y wrestler, the winner will face off for Z wrestler on night 2 on Wrestle Kingdom, then Z wrestler on night 2 never wins. In Wrestle Kingdom, Ospreay is Z wrestler in the scenario. Hiromu beat ELP night 1 Wrestle Kingdom 15, then went on to beat a fresh Ishimori on night 2. Mox beat Archer on night 1 Wrestle Kingdom 14, then beat a fresh Robinson night 2 Wrestle Kingdom 14. Ibushi beat Naito Wrestle Kingdom 15 night 1, then beat a fresh Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom 15 night 2. Hiromu beat Ospreay Wrestle Kingdom 14 night 1, then went on to beat a fresh Liger in a tag match on night 2 Wrestle Kingdom 14. There's a pattern here, and it hasn't been proven wrong yet. Whoever wins between Okada and Shingo will go on to beat Ospreay at night 2 Wrestle Kingdom 16. It's simple science, guys.
Didn't Juice Robinson wrestle in the tag championship match?
Yes, and also Liger had a match his first night too.
Yeah.
So it's a little spotty here, but I see what he's getting at.
Little less fresh, though.
there is something so like in finance, when people are considering different types of, funds to move into, we have to show them the fund history, how it's performed over a certain course of time. And we always tell people these are good metrics to look at so you can see patterns and study them, but they don't guarantee future success. Just because something has behaved a certain way in the past, it is a fallacy to believe it will always be that way in the future. So I'm not saying that this is wrong, but to believe just because no one has been the challenger on the night 2 and then won, that it won't ever happen. I mean, that's not true, especially since it's Will Ospreay and he's a former champion and he's undefeated over the course of the year. Could he win? Especially since this company doesn't really have a top-defined heel right now. Jay White's not even in the country. They might want to establish a top heel for this company. And if they did, Will Ospreay's probably the guy to do it with, depending on how much trust they have in him. So, I like this train of thinking, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the way it actually happens.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is all true. Like, there's no debating it, but that's actually more of a reason for me to believe that
They
Will
might do
Ospreay,
it.
that Will Ospreay could win.
Right.
Right.
Me too.
Because otherwise, honestly, we've got the same scenario that we did last year.
Right.
But then there's also the fact that they've given us the same double title picture on double nights 3 years in a row. there are trends. They might just give us the happy ending again. So I don't know.
The happy ending is Shingo winning.
The one thing that does give me a little bit pause for Ospreay, aside from some of the other things we mentioned, he's not involved with Night 3 of Wrestle Kingdom, which I get why. It's kind of more of a domestic show, but if he was going to win, wouldn't you want your world champion to be involved with the big cross-promotional show on some level? And he's not, as far as we know. So I don't know how good of a look that would be to not have the world champion on the Noah show at all.
Right.
So that's another thing. I think we've played around with it enough. My final thing is I think Okada's sweeping this. Now, I haven't, since we've been doing the show, and even going back to prior to the show, going back to like the year prior when I started doing podcasting, I've never been wrong about the winner of the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. I'd be happy to be wrong this year. I would love it if they did something different and did not go with Okada and went with Shingo or went with Ospreay. I think that'd be so cool. But I think they're just going to go with Okada again.
Yeah. Then last question here to wrap things up. Donhoy 101 says, any bold predictions for this year's Wrestle Kingdoms?
I got one. Night 2 is going to be better than Night 1.
Is that bold?
I think it is. A lot of people, like almost every group I've seen, every discussion board, every post, everyone thinks Night 1 is going to be the better night. Like a lot.
Night 1's pretty strong.
People are very high on it, and I get why they are. I do. But man, when I look at Night 2 and I just start thinking about the possibilities, about the flow of the show, and you got the women's stardom match, you got that junior triple threat, and then you got the KOPW that's going to like break it up in the middle. Like, I don't know. I just feel like with the 4 singles matches back to back to back at the top of the card and the possibility of how good they're going to be, I think this is going to be a better night than Night 1.
The top of Night 2 looks great. You're right.
Yeah.
But people aren't giving credit to those 2 special singles matches because I don't think they're as high on those matchups as they are as, say, like the Shibata match or the Junior title match, and I get why. But I think when everything's said and done, this will be the higher quality show when it comes to actual match star ratings and all that sort of thing. I think it's going to be a better show, and I think it's going to flow better, honestly.
Bold prediction. People are going to love these shows. And I think that I think that's a bold prediction because the trendy thing right now is to not like New Japan. And I know everyone's got their reasons for how they feel or whatever, but I do think that these shows are going to generate positive buzz for New Japan. And that's the same thing Wrestle Kingdom did last year. Last year's Wrestle Kingdom shows, even with limited capacity and wacky booking and all this stuff, they reestablished some faith in with some of the fan base. And I think that that's what Wrestle Kingdom is going to do again this year.
Nice. For me, bold prediction, I think that Jeff Cobb versus Naito is going to be one of the most talked about matches of the weekend. Not saying it's going to get the highest star rating. It might not be the best match, but I feel like it's going to be the match that gets a lot of buzz. Like last year, like Shingo and Cobb, a lot of people might say that was the best match, but I feel like that match got a lot of buzz, even though some people might have liked the main events better. So I feel like Cobb and Naito is going to be that match where some people are putting it up against the main events and it gets a lot of buzz.
I don't know that I have any other outlandish or hot takes or anything like that. I think the show is I thought we did a good job breaking it down. I think it's very much what you see is what you get for the most part. There might be some surprises and some fun stuff, but top to bottom, I don't see anything here that's gonna I can't think of anything outside the box. I'm sure there will be stuff outside the box that we're not thinking of, but I don't know. I'm not bold enough to say anything else other than I think Night 2 is going to be better.
Well, that's Night 1 and 2. We are at 3 hours and 15 minutes. I don't think we have time to do a full match by match for night
Dude,
3.
We were never gonna do one for night 3. I
Right.
don't give a fuck about that show.
And I don't think we're an educated.
Y'all can handle that next week. 'Cause that's still almost 2 weeks out.
Yeah. The one thing we should do, Chris, I just want to get your thoughts on night 3. A lot of people have been disappointed on the lack of singles matches, and due to the build of it, seemed like we're getting all these rematches. What are your thoughts, real quick, on night 3?
Yeah, of course, I was super hopeful that we were going to see some like really marquee singles matches. If I was putting it together, I would have done 3 or 4 really key singles matches and really make something out of this, but that was never going to happen, right? Like, I did think we'd get one marquee singles match that was like maybe not even the main event, but like the semi-main that would mean something, right? Or like build to something, or build to whatever this relationship's gonna look like going forward. And for all we know, it's nothing, right? But it's a little bit of a shame that we didn't get that. I still like to see these guys mix it up. I'm still going to have a good time watching the show. I'm still curious to see if it's going to build towards something more. I mean, we've already got Kenta showing up in Noah, and then also wrestling on the New Year's Day show. And then, you've got to figure there may be some just like very brief, even single person, in a tournament, right? Maybe it's the Best of Super Juniors gets a little freshened up with some domestic talent from other companies. Like, that's the tournament that I think needs it the most. But maybe you'll see some big, long build that puts someone like, even Shiozaki or Kato Kiyomiya or even Muto or someone just showing up on New Japan stuff again, right? And maybe it's not like in the US where these doors are kicked wide open, but maybe you see some of these guys do a tournament or do a tour, or maybe the door is not completely shut to that type of thing. So I will be watching for, I guess, the seeds to be planted towards more. But otherwise, who doesn't love a bunch of fresh guys mixing it up with each other? It's going to be fun and kind of cool, and I'm looking forward to it. But I my wrestling enjoyment and the reason I like New Japan is because most of what they do has a lot of stakes, right? Like, something they're fighting for something. And a show with nothing to fight for when it comes down to it, besides, I guess, like New Japan Pride. Of course, that's going to go a little bit lower on my excitement list, but I'll probably still wake up early and watch it because that's what I do.
Nice. Yeah, I think Josh and I would kind of give our thoughts on that card, so I don't think we need to
I ripped to bits last week because it deserved to be ripped to bits. I don't think I was off base in any respect, because they told us dream matches. We did not get dream matches. And I don't even know if this podcast is decided as to how we're going to handle this next week, because I don't want to pay to watch this and all that. Like,
yeah, well, we got to figure out when
should we just wait until it comes out on New Japan World, since it seems so inconsequential anyways?
Yeah.
Here's what I'll do. I'll take one for the team. I'll read the spoilers. And I'll tell you if we should cover it or not.
Oh boy, we'll have to cover it in some form somehow. But real quick, just gonna run through these news items real quick and wrap the show up here. So New Japan announced today that New Japan Cup will occur between March 2nd and March 27th, 2022. The single elimination tournament will take place over 15 nights, being at the Nippon Budokan and ending with 2 nights at Osaka Joe Hall. We had a question from Dom Homie 101 with the dates being announced for the New Japan Cup 2022. Do you guys think we may see a forbidden tournament of talent from Noah taking part of it?
I wouldn't rule it out, especially being so close to this Noah show. Maybe something comes of one of the interactions on the card.
Yeah, I think it'd be super cool if it did.
And honestly, that could just be one match too, right? Maybe 2, because maybe they get 1 win and 1 loss. But I mean, New Japan Cup is a lot different than trying to add someone to the G1, right? Where you need to get 9 matches and the booking's real complicated. Whereas, New Japan Cup, you can bounce them as soon as you want.
Yeah. Then New Japan and All Japan will be holding a joint show on April 16th to commemorate Korakuen Hall's 60th birthday with a Joshi festival taking place the day before. Tokyo Sports reports that wrestling shows will be a part of the Korakuen Hall 60th birthday festival on April 15th and April 16th. A women's wrestling dream festival will take place on April 15th, with the New Japan All Japan taking place on April 16th. No cards have been announced for either show, and no Joshi promotions were named for the April 15th event. In Tokyo Sports had a question from MJ Does PR. The news that an All Japan supercard could be in the works of New Japan. My question is, will we ever get a single dream bouts we're asking for?
I don't think you're gonna get them right away. I think you're gonna see these tags, and then I think eventually, maybe down the line, you see some of these single stream matches, maybe as part of a tournament or challenging for a title or a big surprise that comes out on one of the big shows. But I don't think this whole thing's gonna revolve around New Japan either. I think that's part of this, is that I think within your own fandom or this certain community, we revolve it all around New Japan, right? So, but I think seeing a New Japan guy show up in, say, the N1 or Champion Carnival or something like that's also got to be part of the consideration, because it can't all just be take, right? You have to also give. So, and if some of the New Japan star power can help pro wrestling as a whole in Japan, that I think is a worthwhile investment. I wouldn't put it past things moving both directions.
I put a lot of faith in the idea that they were going to give us dream matches for this Wrestle Kingdom Night 3 show, because it's Wrestle Kingdom and it was Noah versus New Japan. So I have, now that that's been struck, I have no reason to believe that they're going to do that with any other shows. Now, I'm not saying they won't, but until I see it, I'm not speculating that it will be the case at all. Doesn't matter whether they did that 5 years ago, which they did, or 6 years ago, probably at this point, but still, I just have no reason to believe that we're going to be getting any sort of major singles matches between, New Japan and other companies in Japan right now until they do it. When they do it, I'm all here for it. Until then, I'm just I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Chris. I think it's going to be a while until we get those dream matches. So I think we'll see maybe some top New Japan versus New Japan guys and All Japan versus All Japan for this show. Maybe we get one big kind of cross-promotional multi-man match. But I think it's going to be a slow build to getting some of the dream matches that Abari has been talking about. MJPR also asked, do Japanese fans clamor for these singles matches as much as Western fans?
They do, when it is in the right context. We've seen times, for instance, when Tanahashi went to, I believe DDT and wrestled Hiroshima, and it just didn't matter. And he buried the fucking company and was frustrated, visibly, and had to go back and apologize to the company and the fans later for how bad he buried them all. So, I mean, there are times where it just wouldn't matter. And it depends on how you do it, when you do it the right way. But if history shows us anything, when it's done right, yeah, the fans fucking love it. And it means all the world to business. So, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to see a major Kento Miyahara versus Okada match?
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think they clamor for it. But my understanding is that the domestic fan base is still very happy with the card as announced for the Noah show, more so than what we've seen from the Western audience.
Yeah.
Good. I hope they enjoy
it. Last few things here. So we had 4 matches announced for the January 15th Strong taping in Seattle. US of J Open Challenge, Jay White versus X. We have Clark Connors versus
X again?
Yes, X is up.
I hope it's the same X.
I'm just hoping this X has some swerve to him, if you know what I mean. Clark Connors versus TJP. We have Drama King Matt versus ELP and Yuya Yamura versus Brody King.
Wait, they're letting Matt Morris wrestle again?
Yes.
Is he a broadcaster or is he a wrestler? I need them to make up their mind.
Well, we have Ian Riccaboni coming in, so he probably got bounced from that. So he's back to being a wrestler.
He thought he found a grift that was going to keep him from taking bumps, and then he was like, "Oh shit!" Back to that bump life.
Yeah. Then we have a Suzuki scheduled for the December 30th Gleeked show coming up, and then we also have the return of Taka Taichi Mania 3 on January 10th. So
Suzuki's kind of freelancing now that he's back in Japan. No, I know, but he's actually doing it.
Well,
he's showing up in a bunch of different places. He was on DDT the other night. He's doing this Glade show. So I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, last year he did a lot of like freelance shows that people I don't think knew about because we tracked those excursion matches of the year. Like I had to track down all these weird fucking obscure like shoot style like hard hit like shows that he was on that like no one else knows about. And I was like, man, this stuff's hard to find. And all these weird proto shows. He showed up on all these like really weird, like tiny Cork and Hall proto shows. So I mean, yeah, he always does this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up for the news this week. We're gonna hold off on these off-topic questions. We're gonna punt those to next week.
Kyle O'Reilly?
I would love to talk about Kyle O'Reilly, but we are 3.5 hours into this podcast.
There's a lot of Kyle O'Reilly questions.
Yeah, we'll talk about.
Wait, I was just joking. I haven't looked over these. There are a lot of.
Yeah, we'll talk about Cool Kyle on next week's episode. Whenever next week's episode is going to air, we still got to figure that out.
Real quick, one thing. This is just a comment from the Dark Soldier. He said, last week's podcast guest was Karen. I liked her. She seems pretty cool. I'd love for her to be a guest again. So there was some love Karen's way.
Yes, Karen's awesome. She's about an hour away from us here in Tampa. Always a fun time hanging out with her. So she rocks.
I love it when people tell us how good the guests are. They don't tell us how much they love us. So.
Well, you got good guests.
It's true.
We do a great job of booking.
We always get the Samsa bump when he comes on.
Yeah, dude. Samsa's a top draw.
Yeah, it's weird. He's like closely like associated with Voice of Wrestling, but like they get buried on that on Reddit. But anytime we post anything with Samsa's name on it on Reddit, we get extra interactions.
Like people, oh shit, you got Chris Samsa on. The dude that does the stats.
Reddit loves Chris Samsa.
I'm the Minoru Suzuki of New Japan media. I'm a freelancer, okay? Like no strong associations around here. Anyone wants to talk New Japan, if I've got the time. Now with you guys, I got to give you far too much time. Which is why, I just pick the big ones, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to cover myself anyway. But man,
to recommend a match so that we can get out of here.
We're going on 4 hours here.
Wait, before we do that, are you going to come here for Tampa for the New Japan show so we can get Korean barbecue?
I would say it's a possibility. Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm quite literally saying that there's a chance. Yeah.
So last week's recommended match of the week was Nagata versus Takayama from 2002, May 2nd, the Fighting Spirit show in the Dome. Match was hard hitting. It was awesome. These guys were
fucking awesome.
Guys are throwing each other around. Freaking Nagata's mouth is bleeding, striking hard. Takayama kind of took control of the match in the beginning part. Nagata had to fight from underneath. And finally come back, hit some big suplex toward the end, hits a big jumping Inzi to the back of Takayama's head, gets the big win there. Definitely a really great, hard-hitting match to check out.
The crazy thing about it was like it started so hot, and then it was violent for so long that it wasn't even that long. It's like under 20 minutes, but by like the last 5 minutes, they're doing nothing but like down spots and long selling, and then getting up and like hope like spots where they're just hitting each other, and it felt like it was like an hour-long match where these guys were just life and death at the end. But it really wasn't even that long of a match. Like they made it feel more epic than it actually was because of how hard they wrestled in the early parts. This is a violent match.
Yeah, it is awesome, and it's like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's not even 20 minutes, like 15 minutes. But they did a great job integrating the MMA into the wrestling. I don't know. What do you got? If you guys haven't seen it, you need to check it out. It's incredible.
Now for this week, Chris, I failed to ask you to have a pick ready. Do you have a pick ready?
I'm just because I kind
Noah
of
versus New Japan Centric specifically and in the Dome. No, I'm just playing. No, you can do whatever you want.
I was gonna say I'm just gonna go chalk because I'm on the spot here. Because I saw this coming, but I only saw it coming about a minute ago. Can I go chalk and say January 4th, 2015, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Kota Ibushi, my favorite Dome match of all time?
Yeah,
let's do it.
I'm just gonna throw that one out there.
I'm sure we've never reviewed it.
Okay,
sounds good to me. Well, Chris, thanks so much, man, for giving us your time, coming on the show again. Give the listeners your plugs and where they can find you online, any things you're working on coming up.
Yeah, so Twitter @TheChrisSamsa, sportofprowrestling.com is my website. You'll see Wrestle Kingdom previews. I'll probably repost my full workbook of Tokyo Dome statistics this week. That'll kind of be my feature thing that I do this week because people like to thumb through that stuff and find wacky random stats that come out of the Tokyo Dome stuff. So I'll post that again this week in the build up to Wrestle Kingdom. And then I'll also have my big previews and the stuff that I send out to Kevin Kelly. I'll have posted somewhere on the internet later this week as well. So hopefully you can follow along with me. And I'll be up watching the Tokyo Dome shows live. So catch me on Twitter, and we'll talk about the shows as they're happening.
Nice. Well, that's going to wrap things up for this week. Next week, we'll be back sometime to review Wrestle Kingdom 16, Night 1 and 2. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is @KIStrongStyle. The network is @Social Suplex. You can follow me @Jeremy L. Donovan. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/Social Suplex. On Instagram, we're @Social Suplex. On Reddit, on the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy @socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences Podcast with Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. And the AEW Match Guide podcast hosted by Sir Sam, which I was on last week reviewing Young Bucks vs. Lucha Bros from the first Double or Nothing. Also, make sure you check out the FOH Draft, which is available for a pay what you want model on socialsuplex.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
It's your bone.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.